December 20th, 2011. This is the Budget Committee meeting, and we're going to continue the review of the 2012-13 town budget. To help guide us, I've put estimated times based on past discussions, presentations, and what I'm expecting us to take. It doesn't mean we don't. It's a guide, so we can spend more time if we want, but it's a guide that leaves us at 9:30. Assuming we have a lot of discussion about the rest of the process. So planning and zoning's first, and Diane's here from planning department. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
That is 12. Page 12.
Page 12.
All right, you want to hit any high points? I think
I'll
a
just-
lot of us were here when you talked.
Yeah, we gave a brief overview. Just the proposed budget right now is $136,168, which is this.
Move that mic up and, how we do this. Hold on.
The proposed planning department budget is $136,168, and that represents a 6% decrease from last year's budget. And the major reason for the reduction is we no longer have a transcriptionist who takes minutes at our planning board and zoning board meetings. We have found a software program that allows us to do the minutes from sort of a dictaphone type system, if you will. It allows us to do them from the DVDs that we get from the IT department. And Ms. Jordan, our administrative secretary, is able to do the minutes during the course of the regular work day, so that cuts out the need for having additional assistance and part-time help. And it's worked out very, very well. And it's actually resulted in about a $7,000 decrease over what was budgeted last year for part-time salaries. The basic increase here is under contracted services. There's a $6,000 amount that's being suggested to allow the town to participate in a program called People's GIS Form Services, which uses our GIS data system, and it has many applications that can be used for tracking building permits and providing geographical references for things such as anything from dog licenses to fire calls, and the list goes on and on. So it has many applications for municipal government, and the amount that's listed here would be to set us up so that we could utilize this system. And my hope and anticipation is that in future years those costs would be shared among the various departments that benefit from it. So I guess we do have a couple of reductions. We got a letter from Regional Planning, and their dues have gone down by $400, and that's based on the new census data, which shows that our census is less than what the Office of Energy and Planning estimated. So therefore there's a reduction in fees. Their dues are based on population figures. And that's really kind of an overview. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I did also prepare, and I hope that it was distributed, a budget revenue report that shows very clearly, you can see there's been a decline in planning and zoning revenues in the past 5 years, obviously because the level of development has closed off. Did you get copies of those, Brian?
Not that I don't recall.
No, I don't have.
Well, I will. Okay, I apologize.
You can just pass it up and
Yeah,
we'll
I mean,
pass it
it's
around
pretty-
at this point. That's simple enough to look
Just
at.
to hide that, in 2009, we collected almost $25,000 in revenues, and last year we collected $2,126. So that is obviously related to
When did
the
the
level of
mills
development
come in?
that's dropped off.
The mills there,
That's the site review application from the mills that's represented in that $25,000 amount.
oh, that was.
That was a
2
fairly
years ago.
large, but, you know, obviously it's related to the level of development activity.
Roseanne?
So Diane, should we take $400 off the $9,300 under plans, dues, and subscriptions, or is that
I don't know if Mr. Winowski made that change. The letter came in after my last presentation to the town council.
Because this is from 11/23. Did you get that information after 11/23?
The request was 90, I believe so, yes.
So then we can assume that.
So you can
that
take
it
off-
wasn't deduct, the
Yeah,
400 wasn't deducted?
$400
So it's
Okay.
from the
8900.
9,300 that the
Okay.
town council
And-
approved.
And then on the contracted services, the $6,000, you said you would need 6,000 to start. After it's implemented, is it additional cost to get more,
I believe there's a maintenance fee. Right now, we're paying a $3,000 maintenance fee on the primary system, the People's GIS system, and that's every year. And that's basically to provide the service and to update the records, and they provide some technical assistance to us. So I would imagine there would be a similar type ongoing maintenance fee for,
would the 6,000 be in conjunction with the 3,000? Or would
yes.
the 6,000
That's in
wouldn't
addition to
encompass
the
other?
3,000. The other item comes under the
Hold on a sec.
mapping services,
So the other 3,000, okay.
which we have a line item up above mapping supplies, and that includes $4,000 for the year. $1,000 is for the ARC GIS license, the year maintenance fee, and the $3,000 is for the People GIS system that we currently have in place.
So that's what's coming out of the 4,000 in that process?
Yes.
1,000 and 3,000.
That's right.
At that point, we'd be up to $9,000 for a People's GIS service.
It would be 6,000 plus 3, correct, in this given year.
Okay, thank you.
What, there's $20,000 budgeted for contracted services this year, but no money's been spent?
We are actually, if you, you were not part of those discussions, but the town council directed us to take a look at impact fees, and we hired Bruce Mabry to come back and do an evaluation. And when I came to the budget committee last year, I had asked for money to actually update our impact fee program. But before the council wanted to see the money released, if you will, they wanted to make sure that it was still feasible, that we still wanted to continue with the program. And we're at the phase now where the planning board committee who worked on this is coming forward at tomorrow night's meeting to the council, and they have a recommendation, and it will be up to the town council to decide whether or not to continue, move forward, maybe correct some of the issues and problems that have been noted, or perhaps to rescind a portion of the impact fees. There's a recommendation that they be replaced with what's called system development charges for water and sewer costs, which is a more reliable and less burdensome, if you will, form of raising capital to pay for capital improvements to the system.
So is that committee work? So that's not a consultant?
It's a consultant has been hired. If we go forward, we would hire Bruce Mabry to update the program, basically.
So there would be potential that some of those $20,000 that's in this year's budget would be spent for that purpose.
That's correct.
But no contract has been signed yet.
Not at this point, because we're waiting for the green light, if you will, from the town council.
Go ahead, Roseanne.
With the recommendation coming from the committee to the council tomorrow night, whichever way it goes, if you decide to go with system development changes and whatsoever, would that change the impact fees that Jim Burke is required to pay?
No, it would
I think
not.
it's close to $25,000, he would
No, it
still
would not.
pay that?
He would still, if all of a sudden it's decided by the town council to rescind the program, I mean, basically the fees that we have in place for the intended purposes would still continue until the fees are exhausted. We do have a legal opinion from our town legal counsel on that issue.
Okay.
So approvals that were granted while they were in existence would still
Be-
be valid.
Compelled to pay. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
I'm having a hard time justifying the $6,000 in my head for the people's form services, so it doesn't seem like it's a useful tool for me to be able to go and see that Drew got a building permit to put on this. I don't really care if Drew got a building permit.
Well, it's a tool for the people, obviously, internally working with the systems. It's just another enhancement, makes the data readily available and can be used for accounting purposes. And I do have some information I can make available. Can be used for demolition permits, driveway permits, dumpster permits, to identify geographically where your senior citizens are residing so that perhaps specialized services could be provided to them. The list goes on and on, fence permits, pool permits, cat and dog registrations, business inventory. We just updated our economic development plan, and one of the recommendations was the town really needs to have a good system of providing information about available industrial and business sites to the public, and some communities have set up a GIS system that's targeted specifically for economic development, which would make this information available. So from the planning department's perspective, that information would be useful to help set up that inventory. It is a new...
It doesn't, I couldn't go online and apply for a building permit through the system. It would just acknowledge if I had one, it would be reported there.
I believe that the intent is to create forms so that you could do online transactions. And that would be a good example. I recently applied for a building permit for the city of Boston on some property that I own there, and it was all done electronically, and it was very, very efficient. And I was able to get the permit reviewed and approved with a confirmation within 24 hours after I filed it. So, you know, it is an enhancement to the overall operations of the department.
So this is going to reside in the planning and zoning office area?
Well, I actually put the money in the budget because Town Administrator Winowski and I attended the session, and we felt that it would have applications for the entire town. And I put it in my budget to at least get it started because the planning department is where the GIS system is housed. And so that's why the logic in having it in the planning budget, even though it would have general...
It would be administered by you, and
Well,
pretty much, because you're the one that's in that office.
Certainly, it could be with...
Is there a component to that to also service, say, fire department?
Yep, emergency personnel.
Are they module units, or it's just a flat program where you would just click and go into, or is it module setting up going into one database?
It would be, you know, each department would have access to the database and would be, I'm not sure what you mean by module,
Well,
but
but
there would be different components and
Right.
different applications, and not everybody would have access to the same information. But let me just give you an example. You know, let's say that there is a fire at, 44 West Main Street, make that, and, the fire department would have access to know, wait a minute, there's an elderly person who lives in that unit in the back, and they're going to need special care when we get to the site. So, I mean, it's that kind of information that this system would provide to emergency personnel. So they
And
could do a
that's-
better job in,
That's
in
fine and
attending
well.
to the specific needs
My
of the...
concern is of spending the money, and who's actually going to feed this information into the database?
Well,
and how-
that's
I mean, some of this stuff isn't probably redundant to what they currently have.
that I don't know, but the idea is the system would be set up, the data would be generated and inputted into the system
Would
so
you
that would be
classify this
readily available.
$6,000 to be, I mean, it's nice to have, I'm sure it is, and it's gonna make whatever it is that needs to be done more efficient and all that, but is it considered in today's economy a luxury item, and can it be?
I would say, given our current tax situation, if we put it off for a year, I don't think there'd be dire circumstances.
Okay, and the other part of that 6,000, is that the actual cost for the software and setting it up, or do we also have to invest into hardware?
We have the hardware. It
have all the
operates on
hardware.
our existing systems, yeah.
All right, thank you.
The other question I have is the $10,000 for the master plan update. I guess I need to understand why that's not something that you would be able to undertake, given the slowness of the planning process in terms of new
It's
subdivisions.
certainly something that I'm able to do. I used to work in private consulting, and I did master plans for a living. So I mean, it's not out of the question that, whether or not it can be done. It's just they are very labor intensive. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of time that goes into the drafting and writing of the plans, data collection. And even though we haven't had a lot of development activities, there are still people who come into the office and have planning inquiries, and we're working on economic development type activities. I'm also involved in grant writing. As you know, I've been working with the New Hampshire Rivers Program on some grant applications for the dam removal. So, the question becomes one of, I can't do it all, I'm only one person. I'm very fortunate to have a part-time administrative assistant, but it's not like here we are in Newmarket with a full staff of planners who can work on all these different components. An example, recently I was involved with the town of Merrimack when I worked as a planner there, and they just hired a firm to do it. And I mean, they have a full complement of planners and a zoning administrator, planning administrator, and they have a full staff, and yet they didn't feel that they had the ability to take on the magnitude of that type of project and be able to complete it. The last one, we worked with a consultant who helped us with part of it, but I spent about 18 months working on the project for the economic development plan, and it was a major project. It can be done, it's just a lot of work.
Are we under,
Yep, go
are we under a deadline to get the master plan?
There isn't a deadline per se, Judy. That's a good question. In the state statute, it says that the master plan should be updated every 5 to 10 years. The statute also allows communities to break it up and do one element at a time. And that's the approach that Newmarket has taken because it, provides the opportunity to really focus in on a project. So in the last few years, we've done the conservation, then we did recreation, conservation, water resources, and this past year, the the economic development plan.
So you have a list of the, what's next on the.
Yeah, and of course, that's, based on what the planning board feels is a priority. Last year, economic development was clearly a priority for the town, so that's why we pursued that particular element.
I have one other question.
Go ahead.
I can go, okay. Diane, on the postage, I was noticing, go back and find it now, postage, 762 as of June 2010. So why doubling it now?
700 I have
That was
postage 1,500, and
2010 was 760. 2011 was 1512.
yeah, that was actual in
Okay,
2010.
Actuals of 2000,
And-
and as of June, okay.
As a matter of fact, last year, it was cut back by $500, and as you see, the cost came in at 1,500, so I'm just,
No, I apologize, I was looking at the wrong line.
okay.
Yep.
I might mention that the planning board has recently raised the rates on butter notices and the legal notices because the costs have been higher than what they have been in the past.
And you're referring to certifies.
Certified, right, $7
That
per.
has actually gone up on the postal side, will in January.
Okay, well, we try to keep an eye on that so that our costs are in line with what it actually does cost.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Libraries next.
What they say
42.
42, oops.
Oh,
Thank you.
is there anything that you want to highlight or share in your budget?
We did go over some of it in the last meeting. There were some questions that you asked that you wanted me to look into, which I have. One of them had to do with the water sewer budget, and I talked with Sean Gregg, and he told me that we had a leak last year, which was why we had such a high water sewer budget, and to plan, our average would be about $600, and not the water sewer, where are we
So
here?
the actuals in fiscal year 2011 were 1,700.
And that's because there was a leak, and now he thought it would average around 600. It goes up a little bit in September when the Heritage Festival uses our water for the weekend, but other than that, we have a very reasonable, manageable amount per period.
Excuse me, sorry. I think the other question from my notes was confirmation on the part-times, the salaries. There was some confusion about what was the right number.
Well, we added up the figures that I got from the administrator, and they come to the part-time salaries add up between what was paid out last year and what is requested this year. The 6 part-time people I added up, and that it comes to the amount that is under the town council's recommended budget amount.
106,
Yes,
19.
yes.
Excuse me.
So we had 2 different sets of figures, and I got the correct one from,
But this is the correct one.
yes, the 106,019.
And are you aware of the change that the administrator made to the health insurance?
Yes, I'm aware of that. We factored that in. We have factored that in.
Okay.
But there was one other thing I'd like to point out. I made an error in flat funding the electricity. I had taken the figures I had and gone back to where it said adopted budget FY12, and it says 7,500, and I had transferred that figure over, and then discovered that our actuals are $10,000, so we are $3,000, well, $2,500 short in our electricity budget there.
So that 75 should have an increase of 25?
Yes, 2594 brings it up. And then another figure that I did not have, it was the first time that we've been, this figure for workers' compensation. It's never been figured into our part of the budget, so I had no figures for that. And then later on, after the budget was, after I presented it on the deadline, I got a bunch of figures from Julie Glover, and that I have to add another $702 for workman's compensation, and that had been part of somebody else's budget all the way back to 10 or even previously. So I have a shortfall there of $702. And another figure that she gave me was, sorry, I'm not used to this here.
That's okay.
Was the figure that I had for our liability insurance was $35.86, which I transferred over, and then she gave me a figure which was $1,000 more to put in. So I have several shortfalls.
Property liability?
Property liability.
What about the unemployment? You have to put something in for that?
Unemployment, yes, unemployment, that's, yes. That's the one that I need to put in $702.
Oh, I thought that was
Yeah.
workers' compensation.
No, I don't have anything, I'm sorry, I got the wrong line there. No, I don't, workman's compensation is all, it's 0 zeros. I never had a figure for that. It was the unemployment that's the 702.
Oh, so it goes, so
Yeah, it goes-
702 goes to.
Unemployment, right. And I all have zeros under workman's compensation, so it must be part of another budget.
Okay.
So that's,
We're adding to the unemployment?
there is, yes, because there was nothing, it was never in my budget,
Okay.
but this year
Now it's being transferred
it's
over to you?
transferred to my budget,
Okay, and
yes.
what was that dollar amount again?
$702.
$702.
$2.
So you need $5,202 more dollars.
How did you get?
Yeah, how'd you get 5,000?
4,000, I'm sorry.
I didn't even get that. I got 250 plus 709.
2,500 plus 700.
Plus the
2,500,
insurance.
1,000, and 702.
Okay.
Property insurance.
Where was the 1,000?
I don't know. Hold on a second. So, man, the property liability insurance, you were actuals for 2012 were $3,500.
And the, now what she asked me to budget was $1,000 more for this year.
So 4,500.
How could the property liability insurance for one property go up by $1,000 in a year? That doesn't make sense, Ed.
I can't address why there's an extra 1,000 in there.
No. She sent me an email, and that's what it said. Julie Glover sent me an email saying that I needed to budget an extra $1,000 for $1,002.57, actually.
All right.
Good reason not to let her go earlier.
So those are three shortfalls that I have. Otherwise, the budget represents the 2% reduction.
All right, those are changes that they're requesting to be made. Any other questions? Or did we, so Ed, I think there were some questions that came up during the council discussion on this. So is the library staff employees of the town?
No.
So,
Oh, no.
I,
I'd
the
see that
library-
they would be. They would fall underneath the town's personnel policy.
so if are they in the state retirement system?
Yes.
Then they're definitely employees of the town, otherwise you wouldn't be able to be in the state retirement system.
And they're tax
Follow the
based.
same holidays and benefits that everybody else gets.
And so the rest of all the line items associated with the different human resources related costs are consistently being done with the rest of the town employees.
Was there a question about library trustees getting paid? I heard something about that.
That was brought up and I said that's not a budget committee issue,
Okay.
that's a town
that's
council,
what you-
town administrator ethics issue. Yep.
Along that line of town administrator, town, if we are in effect giving the library a grant, and they are a grant, but we've got two things going at the same time. Because they're considered town employees with all of the benefits, blah, 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 but they are a grant from under the grant. So somehow, that's an administrative situation that needs to be straightened out.
I think it's more complicated than that, because I know the state law about libraries gives them ultimate control over the library.
The trustees, yes. they
So
do.
the particular relationship that the town establishes with them is an administrative decision about whether or not they would be town employees.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're not, then we will have a lot less accounting knowledge of how the money is used,
That's true.
because none of it
That's
was
true.
run through the town books. And you said historically, at some point, it wasn't. The
It
town didn't manage the accounting for the.
Right. Originally, the council and the budget committee gave us a certain amount of money, and a check was given to the treasurer throughout the year, and they paid all the bills and the salaries and that. And at some point, the town asked if we could do the salaries because it just was easier for
Yeah.
them. And then they took over the paying the bills too.
It looks like, are there two library trustees here, or one?
Two.
Okay.
Two.
Is there anything that you want to add or share? And if you do, if you could come to a microphone so the public can hear, that'd be great.
Well, I don't know how much I can add, but I do want to address
the part about whether library employees are town employees. I've been looking through the library trustee handbook, and according to what it says in there, they are not town employees. They are a separate thing. And I probably should have brought that with me because then I could show you, but I know that it does say
Speak
that.
up a little bit, Joe.
Library employees are not town employees. It is a separate structure. I'm not quite sure why or whatever, but that's the way it's set up according to the state.
If I could, I would concur with that only because it's a grant that the town is giving. And I think what Judy was trying to say, within that grant, there has to be monies to operate on, to cover the administrative costs. That, to me, is what separates you from being part of the town. Is that's your entity, you're given the grant, you work within the confines of that grant, and in doing so, then you're regulated. However, your books are open to interpretation by the auditors on the town side because it is a tax-based kind of grant. But the grant in itself is a lump sum given to you. That's how I would.
Well, that's what the statute, how the
Yeah,
statute.
I've read that, and that's
reads.
how I interpreted that.
I think what kind of has muddied the waters is the fact that the town started doing the books for the library, and that's sort of, because according to the handbook, that really is something that we're supposed to be taking care of too.
Is it's somewhat irrelevant for this discussion, but it would be helpful when you get your pay stub and your tax return. Is it the town of Newmarket?
Yes.
Then you are an employee of the town of
Yes.
Newmarket
Because it's set up that way
from
now.
that structure. So it might be intended to be differently, but right now that's the way. It
The
is.
way that it is right
Yeah.
now,
Which
yes.
which doesn't really matter to us because it's not going to change what the requested level is. Although I think you would have more costs if you were being separately running the checks yourself and had to buy property insurance outside of the town and had to do workers' comp outside of the town's workers' comp. So
Maintenance.
I think that's all discussion that the council and the library trustees need to have to figure out what's going to work and clear it up so everybody's happy and makes sense. I wasn't trying to make it, I was just trying to understand it because one of the things that have come up is trying to be consistent in how the school and the town deal with employees in terms of pay raises and benefits. And so when we became aware that a library full-time employee has 100% health care being paid for through the town taxpayer dollars, that didn't really make sense to us. So that's why this discussion got to that point.
It's not related to this. It's another question. Do you have separate funds that are not part of the expense, revenues put aside for such as expansion? And if you could,
We have money in the CIP that has been put away for several years, and we're at the point where we could hire someone, and I've talked with planning about hiring someone with the
can you
expertise.
speak into the mic? 'Cause
I've talked with planning about hiring someone who has expertise in historical buildings and covenants and things like that to draw up a preliminary design. And there is money in the CIP for that we have been putting
without
away.
looking through the CIP, you have an idea what that dollar amount is?
$166,000.
166,000, okay. And no other revenues, any other accounts? Just
No, the only things, we have, we sell book bags and town, little small things like that.
Right, so you can
And-
contribute to that. Now, is there a separate account for, sort of like a benevolent fund where people can make monies out to the friends of, say, the library, similar to what the rec department has? Monies can go specifically earmarked to, not associated.
If someone wanted to give me money for a book in memory of someone, then
Okay.
We
But
would-
there's no account set up for somebody passed away and left $10,000 or,
no,
you know, no type
nothing
of
like
fund
that. No, we've
okay.
never. not fortunate.
Are those funds, like if someone gave you money or you raise money from the book sales, where does that money go through accounting-wise?
Generally, I have used it to supplement the programming budget, because it's been low, and so we use it for the Children's Museum pass. We've used it for puppet show, and we had an adult program on birds, and so we use it for things like that, that we don't have money in the budget for, but it's not a lot of money. I mean,
So it's not being, there's no line item in the town revenue side that reflects any money the library receives. Okay.
Stretch the dollar.
yes, we do stretch the
Is there-
dollar.
I noticed the $8,000. Who does the library maintenance? The
We-
town?
No, we have a staff member that does it,
A staff member that does it?
and it's included in part-time salaries.
Well, the building maintenance is what Roseanne's looking at, right?
Yeah, the building maintenance.
That's for like,
Oh, that part, oh, that maintenance is like keeping the boiler running, and that's all of the things in the building that need fixing during the course of the year, and supplies for that.
Okay.
That's what that
Does it have
is.
anything to do with the exterior of the building, like its
Yes.
foundation or anything like that?
Yes, inside and outside, it's like, I'm going to we have some chinks. We actually need to redo our outdoor woodwork. It's all, it's in bad shape, but it's
Yeah.
also lead-based paint, so it's a bigger job than just having somebody come, and so that's part of that.
I just noticed, because I go to the library all the time, where the asphalt meets the foundation, it's a stone foundation, there's several areas where you can stick your fist in there.
Yes.
Right at ground level. And
And-
that's critters, that's moisture, that's ice, so.
And I had someone come and look at the whole building, and he's waiting to have me hire him to.
And the library's been extremely busy with the economic downturn. Every time they go in
has.
there, it is slammed.
It really is very, very busy.
any other questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so far I've blown up my timeline, so, okay. Recreation. Because MIS wants to go later, for those of you who got here after the meeting. 47.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, page 40.
Sammy Gigande, she's my assistant director, if you haven't met her.
47. Page 47. You want to hit any high points?
I just want to let you know that when we first originally entered, the budget was 1% less than it was last year. With the cut of the part-time salaries, we're now at 2% less than last year. So that's where we are right now with our budget.
All right, we'll start with questions then. I'm sure there's questions. That's why you guys got 20
okay.
minutes. Dana?
Mr. Hilton, I apologize, first of all, on not keeping my appointment with you that I've tried to schedule on many occasions due to the work and everything. However, one of my questions at that meeting, if we had had it, would have been, where are you insofar as the rec department that I've been asking for the last 3 years on the budget, as prior to that to being on the council, insofar as self-sufficient on programs. I think we had some preliminary discussions, even with the previous administrator and with this current administrator, that there's probably more of a need to become self-sufficient and not rely so much on the tax base, such as programs that if they're not making money and able to move forward and cover that cost without having to have to take it somewhere else. Those are the kind of things I'm looking at, as well as programs that you are currently doing that pay themselves all the way, and perhaps a little revenue on the side to help you plan some other activities, but try to move it away from the tax base now. I remember having a conversation with you saying that I would have no problem covering for X number of years, 2, 3 years, the salaries, but the program, bring in the revenues, my recommendation at that time was that, where are we? That's basically my question. Have we taken any steps to reach that goal of self-sufficient?
Can I answer that? I think, I appreciate your question, and having worked at the department for 14 years, we're not a for-profit service. We are, some of our programs that we offer are for-profit, and some of them are not. Some of the most critical programs that we offer are not for-profit. So in going in that direction, we would have to cut those programs that are not-for-profit, i.e. the senior center is a wonderful place, very much needed, does wonderful things for the senior, but it's not a money-making center.
Okay, let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Those are not the areas I'm looking at. I'm talking about day-to-day programs. You know, within the summer programs, things that you would have people sign up for, but if it's not covering the cost. I don't mean like the senior citizen center, absolutely not. I was an advocate for that, I pushed for that, and I don't want to see that go away. However, maybe maybe line dancing or something like that. Some of these small things that do add up.
Those programs could be, there's several line items that are for profit. Bus trips, we don't run a bus trip unless there's a profit margin. And we have easily, that could be a revolving account of some sort, separate from the other things, the nonprofit services that we offer. However, then the town wouldn't be incurring that revenue either. And sometimes that revenue offsets those other programs. So if you're going to divide it, then it'll be what the town is paying is going to be, mostly budget and not a whole lot of revenue bringing in, whereas all the revenue generating programs will be in a separate account and be self-sufficient. Salaries, again, where you put those, okay, now we have programs that are being run by instructors on the profit-making end, and then you have salaries that are coming the administration. So you'd really have to break it apart. It's not a simple answer. We are looking into areas that might help that we've never tackled before, and that is use of rental of the facilities that might offset those areas for nonprofit. And we've never rented before, and that is, bottom line profit margin. And that's areas we are looking at because of the economy and the programs aren't bringing in the revenue that we want to. And until they do, we have some open facility space that we might be able to rent.
It still goes back to my question is, what have we done from point A when it was originally discussed to where we are today sitting here? Any progress in becoming that self-sufficient?
Dana, I can answer part of that. A lot of the programs, as you asked me last year, in fact, I think Roseanne asked me too, to give you a list of all the programs and what it would cost for them to run and how much you actually made. And we're using that as a template to be able to see what programs are making money and not making money and making decisions based upon those findings. But we're also doing something that's pretty incredible. We're looking at ways to reduce cost in programs. Like, for instance, the Mother-Son Dance, we usually used to do it at the Rockingham Ballroom. We didn't do it at the Rockingham Ballroom this year, we did it at the center. That saved ourselves $600. So we're looking at ways to be able to do that too. So yes, I think the answer to your question is we're moving in that direction.
Good. That's exactly.
And the other thing is the bigger line, the items, like for instance, like camp, we're raising prices. In fact, we went up almost about 12%, 14% this year on camp. We also looked at every one of our programs and raised it 10%. So all of the things as far as lowering the cost of how much to do it itself, and also raising the price so that we can make more revenue.
Currently, we're not running any programs, like week class programs, that aren't generating a profit.
That's
They're
right.
either breaking even or they're generating some sort of profit.
Now, I will say that there are programs like, for instance, the Fishing Derby, which we've been doing for 23 years, that we don't charge anything for. There are 4 or 5 different programs that are in there that are. Easter egg hunt for a long, long time wasn't, but now we are charging a price. We kept all the eggs. We asked everybody to give the eggs back so we can refill the eggs. So those things that you asked us to do, we're moving in that direction.
Those large special events, definitely, it's also marketing for us as well to help us establish the programs. So those large special events aren't money-generating programs, but we do have reduced the cost of those, so they're a little bit.
So do you see a point here in the very near future, 5 years, 4 years, where you would become self-sufficient minus the cost of the salary base coming from the tax side?
I would like to see that happen. The economy is probably slowing that down a little bit.
Right.
My goal is to try to be run it like a business, with that's caring, socially caring, for the people that are here, and have the ability to have scholarships and ability to be able to allow us to be able to do that through ways that allow us to have individuals that can afford to be able to come into the program. Yes, that's a goal that we're moving toward. The last 2 years have been tough with the economy the way it is. Let's face it. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, everything was cranking, and not so much these days.
And that's probably why you haven't seen anything, is because the economy is the way it is. We haven't been able to progress other than just change the way we're doing business, which we are doing.
See, I also look at it. If you look at the budget, it's dropped, but we also added lights, remember. By adding lights was $6,000, but we're also adding revenue on that end. So we've added areas that are there, that are in the budget, that are actually making us money, but the budget continues to go down. That's our goal, is to continue to make it go down and let the cost go up on the, revenue go up. That's correct.
Are we working more efficiently? Much so.
That's the wrong thing to say for the budget committee, have costs go up.
Right, no, exactly, and I don't think you're gonna see that. We have moved things around a little bit to be more efficient with it as far as your numbers wise. That's when you asked me about that. But as far as the bottom line number, it's dropped.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, the department, if this budget was passed, would spend $393,000. How much money are you projecting for revenue?
209,981
So that
is up from last year. Of this year's, it was 194.
is this is what the number you're coming off this chart? Because it says 11,
Where
12.
is that number?
What's-
Revenues?
We're talking about 12, 13. That's why.
That's just a typo.
That's a typo.
So, all right.
209,
So
981.
more than 50% of the budget would be covered by user fees, basically.
That's correct.
What was that number?
It's on this sheet, 209,000,
Okay.
209, 981.
which
I don't have that.
which is far more than.
Most.
Well, no, I mean, I just to get to Dana's question, the salaries are 260.
Yeah.
So, it's 260 minus 393 is 170.
Yeah.
Right.
So this revenues far exceed. They've already done what you're saying.
Right,
Unless
well,
I'm misunderstanding your
And
question.
when I came in 1989, the actual amount for recreation was 190,000. And here we are 23 years later paying 170,000. That's a pretty good return on your dollar.
Out of taxpayer dollars.
That's correct. That's right.
Okay. Yes.
What
Rosanna.
was the enrollment last year for the summer camp?
222.
Yeah.
Yeah, our goal was Roseanne, was 240. We dropped that down. The numbers didn't, but I believe that at this time with the camp what we did this last year, I believe that we'll come to that. That's going to be the number from here on in. That number's not going to change.
Okay.
240 is it.
And what did you raise the camp cost?
It went
for
from
summer camp?
350 to 379.
You want
Then
$29 for the
out-of-towners?
resident and 18.
And out-of-towners also, out-of-towners,
Are 498 now.
That- that's right.
Yeah.
What were they before?
498, they were 485.
45.
we did an increase last year of the non-residents, and we kind of was keeping the line on our residents, but we did go up because we know that we have a supply and demand issue right now. We only have 240. We're not going to have 300. This is the number. When we get 240, we're done.
We're in the process of creating a supply and demand.
Okay, so that is, and
Balance it.
have you rectified the problem that you had last year with the billing?
We did.
The billing
We
problem?
yes, we did.
Okay, now you also say, I remember watching a town council meeting and you were asked by one of the councilors, you claim you have a revenue surplus with your bus trips and so forth and so on, but you do not include administrative cost. I don't know what your ratio is for for a camp, what do you call them?
A
Camp counselor, thank you, per student. You don't include that, and any business should be run that does have that cost included in it.
We included, went in the price of the summer camp, but not in the field trips.
In the price of the summer camp. Now, I notice if you have an average of 220 students, you're talking approximately $77,000.
That's correct.
Whereas just the day camp part-time salaries is almost $83,000. So,
Basically what, you know, the whole summer revenue, if we had 240, let's just say, would come to 97,000. 82,000 of that would be part-time salaries. 9,000 of that would be some of the summer camp costs, with a profit of about $2,500. Now, when we don't get 240, we make adjustments in part-time salaries and costs that we would be associated with summer camp. So if we're not going to get to 240, we're not going to spend 240's worth of kids.
But you have
But we
to.
can't make those
Find
adjustments
this chart
a
at
year
all.
and a half in advance because you don't know.
But Roseanne, you have to add your $33,000 for the field trips. You add the $33,000 of the field trips and the $77,000, you make a net profit. The money from field trips is you have to add it with your the amount that you're going to be doing with the camp counselors, with the camp.
So
I mean,
are you saying the field trips are during summer camp?
Yes.
So there are
Right here on the
additional
bottom, it
fees
says
on top.
summer camp
Yeah.
bus is $33,000. You add $33,000 to 77, we're making a profit.
Yeah, we made our revenue would be $33,500. Our cost was $27,500. We made a revenue profit of $6,000 in field trips. But if we don't have 200 and, the reason we need 240 is to fill the bus.
Right.
The less kids we have, the bus isn't filling, and that's a profit for us. So we need to keep that happy medium, which is why we can't overcharge on summer camp, because then we get less kids coming and we're not filling a bus. So it's all about balance. And so to answer your question, we don't spend 240 worth of kids and all those prices when we don't get 240. We made part-time adjustments, but when we have to put out the budget a year and a half in advance, we don't know that we're going to get 20 kids short. So we make the adjustment as we get closer to June. Then I say, I'm not hiring this camp counselor this year because we didn't bring in enough kids. So we're hoping we will max out at 240, and it always will be this happy medium. But that's, as I said, we're trying to create that supply and demand. Whereas years past, we just kept letting kids come, and we never capped it, and we didn't have any control. And now we do.
And the budget, the revenue projections, I think you're estimating 230 participants in the summer camp for revenue.
Right.
So you're not at your max, so if you
Yeah.
actually got 240, you'd have some more money
Yes.
Right.
than you projected.
One of
Which
the
is
things
probably good to do it that way.
that we would, where we're behind in the times that might make that change, and it's something we're trying to do right now, is we don't accept credit card payments for summer camp or debit cards or ATM cards. And right now, in this economy, parents have a hard time coming up with that money right there. Whereas if they were able to put it on a credit card, then they're balancing out their payments and it's affordable. If we had the ability to do that, I seriously think it would affect registration quite a bit in the plus side. So we're handicapped by not allowing that type of payment plan.
Why can't you do it?
It's just never been set up for us.
The very first credit card was set up through the town clerk to see how that would work. We were the next ones that was going to be in line, and it just hasn't happened yet. Once it happens again, there is a little bit of a fee, but we would probably build that into it. But the thing is, I know that right now it's either cash or check to be able to do that. If we do this, what happens is now the person can pay. One of the two things we did last year, we got a little bit behind the ball, is always try to get it so that we get the first two payments by the time that they get the tax refund, and that's what they do. The individuals do that. If we could do it with a credit card, it'll allow us to be able to see more upfront money versus people waiting for the last minute to be able to pay.
Where would that be controlled, and
Well, it would have to go into Ed might be able to answer this better than us, but the money would have to go into our revenue account. And right now, we don't have the access at the rec department. We have a recreation registration program, but there's no access to pay online. We don't allow anyone to pay online, so it's not inconvenient.
Well, we
If
know all of that, but what's the cost to set that up? Any idea?
I don't know the answer to that question because we're not at that point right now, at this point.
We were
Once-
just about to, I had already had a conversation with Becky about trying to set this up, but again, you know,
I mean, that seems to be a huge benefit to you. I mean,
It does.
can't be costing that much.
Right. And the thing is, too, is we can also look at cards that don't cost and use those cards specifically. And in fact, that's what they use over at the town clerk. I think that would really allow us to be able to see some major revenue. Even in programs, one of the things we're seeing, the trends is, with the programs are filling up, but they're filling up at the very last minute, because people are waiting to the very last minute, because they can't.
See what they have for money.
That's
well,
right.
they can't get off work to come into the rec department and pay the check, so then they don't come in. Whereas if they could sit at work and pay online for the program, boom,
Done.
it's done.
I'm speaking for myself on the budget committee. I would suggest you look at that, look at the cost.
It's just a matter of getting it set up for us
Your
through the
revenue's gonna
fund.
come in quicker.
It is.
Yeah, it's going to come in quicker, and I do believe it'll change how we operate.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Well, hold on, let's see if there's anyone else, sorry, just to make sure.
Well,
You know, I'm just curious about this credit card thing. If the town is already set up to use it, couldn't you just use theirs and they can transfer the money over to the Rex?
The answer to the question is yes, but. And the yes, but is this. We have to have it so that they can do it online, so it can go directly over to the clerk's office. So it's going to be a little bit more work for it. We have to look at that and see how it's going to go. We can't do anything online yet. So we could probably do it right there, but the problem is that you're only capturing the people that can go between 8 and 4:30. Most of the people that are coming and setting up, if they could do it online, we'd have a captured audience. And that's the thing we need to do, and put that together. One of the things with the website,
Google Checkout or PayPal?
Yeah.
all those things, we've been very frustrated with this, and the thing is that the answer to that question is, it's gonna happen. It's just a question of when. And right now, we're just kinda like, we're in the mode here right now. just
I think
waiting.
that's something for the finance director.
That's something for the
Well, that's
administration to deal
basically,
with.
we've been held back because
Yeah.
finance
There's
hasn't
been
been able to
some
tackle that project for us yet.
Now my question.
Dana.
You all
go
done?
ahead.
I'm done.
Thank you. Do you have some type of after-school program for the kids?
We
Almost like, I don't want to use the word daycare center, but in that line?
No, we basically partnered with Link Together, and they basically provided that process at the center. But the thing was that when they started looking at the economy, they went back to the school for the mere fact, we're still working with them. But the thing was that for licensing and all that stuff, it's just not, a recreation department is exempt from licensing. When you get into that point where you're licensed in one program and not, it gets really muddy. So by partnering with an individual and having them pay rent at your facility, which Link Together was doing, so that they could have an older population, the thing was that it just didn't make sense in the economy and bringing the kids back and forth, so they went back to their center. Now let me say something. In day camp, their program goes up significantly because in the morning people have to drop their kids off, so they drop them off to Link Together, and they also, at the end of the day, we bring them to Link Together. So they benefit, but also we benefit.
We would be competing with Link Together if we were to offer a separate
And
one.
we're not interested in
And there's
that.
just not enough kids to spread out at that point.
Thank you.
We do offer after-school programming, though.
We do, for programs themselves, and they can bring the kids directly from Link Together to do that, or the kids can come directly with their parents, or they can come directly from school.
Have you guys thought about, like, renting out for birthday parties?
That's an area that I'm looking into. We just got the okay from the Housing Authority, which is an area where before we weren't able to do that. But I have already looked into that. I've already compared costs to what a hotel would charge for a 1,000-square-foot room. I was 10 years in the hospitality industry, so I already know and am on that.
And one of the things that before that was a benefit for us because they paid all the utilities.
Yeah.
And that back about 7, 8 years ago, they didn't. Now there's, things have changed and the housing authority sort of allows us to be able to actually be able to do the rentals there. We cannot do it at the senior citizen center because they pay the utilities for that. But that's gonna benefit us. We figured that if we could rent it 2 times per month, which we could handle, that would give us an extra, at least $3,000, could possibly even more, to be able to increase our revenue without even putting a program on the table. We just have to have a person come in, check out what's going on, and close back up.
One of the reasons we haven't jumped on it that soon is because of the equipment that's currently at that center is not something, they could get a better opportunity at a hotel for what they'd pay. So we have to make a bit of an investment in tables and chairs, which would pay for itself within a year of just renting it twice a month. But we have found a place where we might be able to spend that money, and so we can move on this quicker.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Doug, you're up. Sorry, Sean. I thought you'd fallen asleep, so I figured I'd just go back to Doug.
I'm awake.
No, I meant Sean. He got here at 6:30, so. Okay, so. Yeah, and just so you guys know, these aren't filled with like treats. That's what I was
Stop
checking
them.
out.
Yeah, those are.
I think it's
Trinkets
either
or
rock
something.
salt or pebbles.
Fill with something.
I don't know, man. Maybe I got the one with coal. It's rice. It's dry rice. I can't eat. I can't eat that.
Sure you can.
I'm not a
rice cooker.
I'm not a pigeon.
Yes, but
I was looking for like Lindt chocolate balls. It's a very nice gesture. Not discounting the gesture. I don't know. Everybody, just so public knows, we got these little. I'm not sure if it's us or everybody that comes up to this table, but thank you cards from the Newmarket elves, and these little snowmen.
you know who did it? Doug. Yes, we do know who did those.
It's the Newmarket elves.
What was it? Thank
I'm not supposed to know.
It's very nice.
Very nice gesture.
Merry Christmas back to them.
Yeah.
All right, so we're on MIS department, page 17-ish,
Let you all
and channel
find
13.
it first.
Huh?
I said I'll let you all find it first if you haven't found it yet. Kind of gone over the numbers once with the council and the budget committee. I don't want to use up too much of your time. We're running a little bit late, so I will kind of just throw it open to questions. Largely flat funded. There's a small reduction in the IT area, but again, very, very level funded compared to
Page
last year.
17. Go ahead.
I was reading it, putting this all together. Don't we have $70,000 in money put aside for technical equipment?
That's in the capital improvement. That came from the Comcast renegotiation.
Comcast
Yes.
renegotiation. Can't we use that money to buy whatever equipment you need here this year?
Depends how we define the capital improvement program. If the capital improvement program is defined as an investment of at least $10,000 with a lifespan of at least 5 years, it becomes a little difficult. About the only thing that would fall under that would be a new server would fall under capital improvements.
Okay, because what I see listed under here for the narrative is PCs, personal computers,
Correct. Yep.
and fire and DPW, 7,000. Wouldn't fire and DPW have to carry that 7,000 in their own budget?
Not that I'm aware of. I've
No?
always purchased technical hardware for fire and DPW.
All right. So do you know if any,
This is just to interrupt. I think it was an accounting philosophical decision a couple years
Okay.
ago to take all vehicles and put it in vehicle maintenance, and
Okay.
Right.
it's
Simplify
the
it.
same difference because it's not like a department's getting charged by another department. It's
All
coming
right.
out of the same pocket.
Okay. Are any of the things listed here in the narrative, to your knowledge, could that be bought with the $70,000 we have in the CIP?
No, not individual PCs. We're paying $600, $700, $800 tops for a PC right now. So no, it'd be very hard to
What if-
purchase those out of CIP.
So, just to follow up on that, there's a technology capital improvement fund with $31,000 in it. The council took $4,000 out to buy laptops. So it's really a decision of the council whether or not that fund could be utilized for hardware purchases. I mean, what would cost $10,000 other than the server? And if
Right.
it's only the server, then maybe we don't need to have $31,000 in that capital reserve fund.
It's servers and maybe some network equipment down the road we would need that interoperates with the fiber optic network. Perhaps those would be high enough budget items to clear CIP.
And, okay, I'll research my question and see if anybody else has any others.
And the mini smart, that's the, almost 30,000, that's for the billing and all that, is
That is our accounting system that takes care of vehicle registration, all money coming in, all money going out. That's the main accounting system for the town.
and that's used in the finance department and in the town clerk's department?
It's used in almost every department right now. Any department, especially cash receipting, DPW uses it for money that comes in from the transfer station.
Okay.
It's used pretty much townwide.
So
It's
that,
our accounting software.
Correct. Yep.
Does that have modules that would allow the recreation department to easily start capturing credit cards? I mean, it would seem like that would be, the issue for the clerk's office is that they have to charge the credit card fee. Otherwise, we're losing 2.95% on
Yeah.
$100,000 in property taxes.
Yep.
You know, losing 2% on $500, they could budget for that. It's not a big deal.
It's something we do need to look at. There is an update to the software that the rec department uses that allows us to take online payments.
Yeah.
How that interacts here is kind of a gray matter to me, because there was a point some years ago where we said every dollar that comes in must go through the tax collection office first before it is.
Right, that's right.
Whatever.
Problem.
So it's a little hard, you're taking that money in electronically to define, okay, it's coming in electronically here, so it must be, you know, it's gonna be routed over here, but it's gonna be credited to that department. We gotta get over that hump. I'm sure there's a way to do it.
so can I just ask a question?
Sure.
In relation to what Diane was talking about in the new system that she was talking about, is this that, the people, yeah, the people's.
The people forms.
I mean, how does that all interface?
I don't think the people forms interfaces with Munismart at all.
But
They-
should it?
Should it and can it are different questions.
Yeah.
I don't think it would interface with the accounting software at all. The People's GIS, I think Diane put it right. It'd be a nice thing to have. There's not going to hurt us to delay it for a year. It does bring a lot of functionality. One nice thing I think it would do is it would get rid of some of the, it would bring together some of the data that you have that's the same in multiple places.
Yeah.
You have a tax map that has lot numbers and everything. Then we've got an assessing thing that has the same tax map references and all these other, then we've got, you know, finance that, when we're sending out property tax bills, there's that same tax map number again. Water and sewer, there's that same, if you could bring all that together into one system, you could do a lot with that. And I think that's what People's GIS really has the potential to excel. And it's probably worthwhile to wait another year and do some more research on it.
That's more of a planning tool for future planning.
It can be used that way, but it can also be used, like Diane said, it can be used for a lot. It could be used for, you know, police and fire in some respects. It could be used pretty much townwide.
Al, did you actually push your button?
I did not. Oh, my snow,
waiting for
Snowman did.
my snowman fell over. Thank you.
And we don't need to use the
Or
buttons because
Judy's
you want to
snowman.
start using the surnames of the council members that you're sitting at.
No, we are totally separate from the council.
Any other questions for Doug on MIS?
So you have overall a 1%
Roughly, yes. Yep.
Okay, Channel 13.
Channel 13's level funded compared to last year. No big increases there. It's a very small budget, obviously, 2 or 3 line items.
The equipment purchases, can that come out of the money that we have in the capital reserve fund from channel, cable, whatever it is?
I'll be blunt. I think somebody has to define what the capital improvement program is. It's a mystery to me. If it's one item that is $10,000 or more, or is it, if I go buy 10 computers for $1,000, and the total is $10,005, can I take that out of capital improvements? Or does it have to be one item that has a depreciable lifespan of 5 years or more?
They have, the fire department, whatever, they have lumped pages and everything to get up to the 10,000, and they've used capital reserve on that by lumping sums up in the past.
And that's the chairman.
So things as small as pagers and beepers, they've lumped into capital improvement. Interesting. Okay.
Well, capital reserves, I wouldn't call it capital improvement, but,
Yeah.
I mean,
Doesn't mean it's right, it's been doing it.
yeah.
Okay, that's my question. Is it right? And
Question that one.
Well, but I think, it's all the kind of the same difference, because it's taxpayer dollars. So, my point in asking the question earlier is, if it's available and we don't, when we created some of these funds, Leo, I think the rule that has been repeated by you was not in place.
Right.
Money was set aside before it kind of got this very narrow definition. We used to have the roads in there. Some of us still think they should be. So, I think the question has to be, since the council is the agent to expend on all of these, it's an administrative decision about whether the council wants to see some of these expenses come out. And the budget committee can say, either you're spending it out of there or you're not spending it by cutting the money. So,
And I mean, that's part of the reason why this year I didn't fund capital improvements at all. As you notice, I added nothing to my capital improvement requests this year because I felt that there was enough in capital improvements to carry me forward to another year. I felt the definition of what constituted a capital expense was murky. And at that point, I felt it best to wait a year and do some research on my own and figure out how best to move forward with that. So I did not fund capital improvements at all this year.
Anybody have any questions about Channel 13?
On the part-time salaries, how many hours a week, roughly?
28 or 30, somewhere around there.
There's still one individual, Chris?
Yes. Yep. And I cover for him like I did tonight when he has to run late to do something for the school department or some other place.
Roseanne?
Is the school paying for Chris's hours when he does something for them?
Yes. Yep. Separate account and everything. Yep.
So he's basically full-time
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
or more.
Again,
Does someone know?
I think we've had that discussion that it can't be full-time because they're two separate entities.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I missed
so-
that. I don't think I was here when you talked to the council, so.
Okay.
But you have to be, 35 hours or more to be full-time, I think?
What's the hour limit now to be full?
37 and a half. All righty.
Okay. Great, thank you, Doug.
Doug?
Thank you.
Water and wastewater. Dun, 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 dun.
I mean, the agenda.
Menu. You're gonna order some chicken fingers?
69.
And just before you start, Ed, do you have, we had requested like the full CIP. I remember in the past, we got like the detailed narrative, because it's hard to understand. Some of the questions that Doug just brought up would be helped out by,
We didn't produce this year. The document was always produced by the finance office. And because we didn't have somebody full-time working, we didn't produce the document as a whole. I can give you one from the prior year that reiterates all the different pieces of each capital reserve account, and I'll
that would be helpful to have,
get that to you.
especially for some of the newer members. And
I'll put it in a PDF format and
okay,
email it to all of you.
thank you. All right, so did someone figure out the page number for everybody?
69.
Thank you. You want to hit any high points or low points in the water?
I think there's a lot of low points. No, To go over the budget, I tried to do a level budget. I tried to look at everything really closely. The water budget, when you actually look at it, is down about $9,700 overall. There are no notable, some of the increases, the salaries have increased a little bit, and that was because there was a miscalculation last year. But there's also a decrease a good-sized decrease in retirement. Chemicals had an increase, and then debt service had a decrease for an overall budget of $843,230. The revenues this year, when we actually set the water rate, was to target approximately $845,000. So that revenues actually kind of met expenses. We are on target to meet probably about $860,000 based on the first 6 months. So we're actually going to pretty much break even, maybe be a little bit over, based on the first 6 months. The CIP plan, the CIP money in here, the $359,000, that money was started to put in last year, and that was to set in there to fund obviously the vehicles, but also it was set in there to try and fund the top 4 projects from the CIP plan that we did with AECom. Since that time, the council has adopted a resolution to target 6 projects out of that CIP plan, and that $359,000 is there to fulfill those projects within the next 7 or 8 years.
So just so it's clear to everybody up here and the public, the water users are paying money that is collected for their usage, and then in this budget proposal, $359,800 would be transferred to the Water Department Capital Reserve Fund for future capital improvements.
Correct. The water users pay for this budget. This does not affect the tax rate.
And the Water Capital Reserve currently has, at the end of this fiscal year that we're currently in, would have about $860,000. If the number in the budget that you're currently in is actually what's passed over.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
That plus
If
that.
those numbers are right.
If
yeah.
these numbers are correct.
Yeah.
Leo, not sure they're
Yeah.
correct, but
Yeah.
Because some of the documents that we received last week don't show. And they don't show
oh, the
this one.
Basically, in-
Right, that one's as of June 30th.
Right.
and my number is
So it doesn't-
including this year's budget that we're in transfer.
And how much is that, Brian, you
The
said?
same number as this year as the proposed budget, 359, 800. I'm looking at this sheet, which we got last time we met, Town of Newmarket Capital Reserve Overview. It has the balance as of July 1st and the additions in the current budget year. And any resolutions, which there has been some expenditures already, like the laptops for the town council.
Where are you getting that
So you
information?
have remaining,
It was provided to us by Ed at the last meeting. And then the other sheet that you guys are looking at is water reserve says 499, 355. That's correct, but if you add the money that's in the current budget we're operating in that should be transferred over, it's going to get another $360,000. So it would be at $860,000 at the end of this year, assuming no money's taken out for a capital purchase. Correct.
see, that's the problem right there. This is what we've said.
Yeah,
From the-
I know, we have to, that's a separate issue. The the trust fund numbers don't necessarily jive as well as we think they should.
Does everyone have the same page? This was the front page of what we got last time.
Right.
And then go about 4 pages back, and there's an updated version of it. It's still on an 8.5 by 11.
What's your date? Yeah, it's 11/30, 11.
So you're saying it's not June 30th, 2011?
Correct. One page in front of where you are, Leo.
No, the page
Not
ahead.
that one, not that one,
The page ahead of that one.
right
Can
there.
I ask a question?
That's the one I'm looking at. Just let me see if we get, everybody's looking at
Yeah,
the
let's
right
get everybody
page that I
looking
was
at the same
referencing,
thing.
that's all.
Yeah.
And my pages got totally out of order there, so thank you for helping people find it. Okay, yeah, Dana?
So the balance there is the same as, the balance on 7/1/2011 is the same as the balance on 6/30/11 from the first page. And then there's addition for fiscal year 11/12, which is a 359,914. And then assuming no withdrawals,
Where's your 359?
right there.
Okay.
So then, yeah, the total will be approximately 860,000.
Okay, so go ahead, Dana.
Sean, how
Yeah,
many
there's a-
vehicles does the water department itself have?
We have, it's kind of, what happens is there's the water operator, there's a truck for him that he uses around. There's another truck that's 50/50 that the system technician uses. So it's 50% water, 50% sewer, because he does the distribution system and he does the collection system.
Yeah.
And then there's my truck, which is 50% water and 50% sewer.
Okay,
And
so
then,
what-
and then there's the vac truck, which the water department does a third of. So there's really, when you look at it, you have one truck that's a full-time dedicated water truck, and then you have two trucks there that are 50% water.
And that full-time one is yours?
No,
No?
no,
okay.
no, no. No,
Okay.
mine's 50% water and 50% sewer.
You are the only one, with the exception of DPW director, that takes the vehicle home?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a cost analysis
Right.
of what that costs us to take that vehicle 5 days a week to your home and back?
I do not have a cost analysis on that.
Okay, I would be very interested, including the insurance, everything it costs. I don't mean just the gas. I'd like to,
Well, the insurance would be you still got to insure it.
right.
Whether it
right, I
sits or
understand
whether
all
it
that.
rolls.
So what I'm saying is, I don't want somebody to come in with a cost analysis of just the gas. There's more there. Gas is important. That's probably the biggest cost factor there. The other question I have, is there anything in your vehicle that would require you to get on the scene of a situation in town, i.e. a water main break, whatever, that you couldn't leave the vehicle at the garage and drive yourself from your home to the garage like the employees do? Drive, pick up the vehicle and
Yeah.
go to the scene.
I mean, I have some tools on board where if I go to a scene that I have that I can use, if there's an issue, I have a
There's
toolbox.
nothing in there, life-saving emergency situation where you've got to bring that vehicle to a situation of a water main break or something like that.
There's no life-saving.
Okay, all
No.
right. Can we get, I'd be interested, I'm not sure if the other boys even listening to what I'm saying, but probably you're hearing it, but a cost analysis of what it costs us for that vehicle, back and forth, back and forth.
Well, essentially, the additional cost, if that's what you're talking, the only additional cost that it costs is the fuel and whatever maintenance goes with that vehicle.
No, I don't mean an additional cost. I want the round picture, the ball, of what that
Yeah.
whole vehicle costs us on a yearly basis to go back and forth to your house and driving on a regular basis daily.
Yeah, but you're saying what the additional cost is, because if the truck is still parked, you still got to pay the insurance, you've still got to.
No, you misunderstand. You're making it a lot more complicated than what it really is.
I mean, I
just
can give you,
need-
I can get you whatever you want.
If
It's,
I
mean,
drive my car to work every day,
Yeah,
all right, at the end of the day, I'm gonna know what I spent.
Yeah.
Gas, pretty much, and the rest of that stuff you can break down over, prorate it out.
Okay.
But I'm trying to get a sense of what it actually costs for a town vehicle, and in this case, you live in Dover, to go to Dover every day, come back every day.
Yeah.
Now, in between that, you're doing work for the town, so you would have a vehicle. I'm trying to separate that out, because, to be honest with you, I've had a lot of people call me, and there's something that's always been in the back of my mind. I can understand DPW having a vehicle. Number one, he lives in town. Not that that's a fault against you, but his position, I think, would require such a vehicle, whereas the water and sewer, that's not essential in my mind to have a vehicle to go back and forth every day. And then, I know one year we had a discussion about this, and somebody said it was part of your contract. Those were the words they used. And I was concerned because you don't have a contract. You're an employee at will.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Can we get some type of cost analysis?
What's the mileage back in,
It's 12 miles from my door to
All right.
door.
so
So 24 days.
24 miles a day?
And what's the reimbursement for the town? I know the post office is 72 cents.
Just use the IRS
It's like
rate,
60
so
cents, I believe.
60
now.
cents?
55
Yeah, I
cents.
can't remember. I saw a new one came out. Okay.
So
yeah.
it's $12 a day.
Yeah, but that adds up over a period of time, too, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Roseanne?
How confident are you, and Ed, that the money that's stated that is in the capital reserve fund for water and sewer is true? I mean, if you look at June 30th, 2011, it says that the balance is for almost 500,000. If you look at June 30th, it says, oh, I'm looking at the same sheet. If you look at the spreadsheet for, what's the date on this, October 26th, it said that we had 1,188,000. And then if you look at 11/30, it says we have 499. Which door isn't it behind? I don't know, do you feel confident that these numbers, I mean, they're all over the place. How do we know what's correct?
I guess
Where do you get these numbers from?
I get my numbers from finance.
From finance?
Yeah.
Okay. I would be comfortable before we moved forward, because these numbers are so erratic. I mean, you're talking, in one of them, there's a difference of $781,000. I would feel comfortable if we can get someone in like MRI and do a quick audit of the water department and sewer department, just to make sure we've got the right numbers, because there's no way a budget committee or anyone else, I wouldn't feel comfortable presenting this too deliberative with these numbers, because I don't know if what I'm telling the public is accurate. So I would like to see a quick audit. You can probably get MRI in here tomorrow.
Okay,
of the
so
date.
we can't, that's a great suggestion, Roseanne. I think the real question, I think, is, and this is what Leo and I were looking at, is if you look at the capital reserve report for the trustee of the trust funds, the number they have there as of June 30th is different than the number that was reported by finance, and they shouldn't be different. They should be exactly the same. The number in this report is 617,000. The number on the reports we got from Ed/finance is 499.
Yeah, and 499 is what I've been getting from finance.
Right, so we know there's been challenges in finance, but someone needs to be able to reconcile and describe which one's accurate and why. My guess is that the trustees of the trust funds is correct, unless there's an expenditure last year that they didn't actually get told of and transfer money out of.
I guess my question, and this is the CIP, is when the trustees of the trust funds get a request from the council to withdraw 300,000, their balance goes down 300,000. When does the town's balance go down 300,000? When they actually pay someone to do the work? Where's that 300,000 between when the request goes to the trustees of the trust fund to take 300,000, okay, their balance goes down 300,000. When does the town's finance department balance go down? When they actually spend the money? Where's that 300,000 gold that is taking from the trustees, and where does that go, and how is it accounted as far as the balance?
I might be able to answer this, Ed. From what I understand, from what was happening, is if a resolution is passed that gets deducted, there's a spreadsheet, and that gets deducted from what the balance is available.
At
But
the
that-
trust funds? At the trustees' trust funds?
No, up in finance. That gets deducted, so there's actually, that is moved aside. That's already accounted for. And then when the bills actually come in, they actually request the money from the trustees and then pay the bill.
Okay, before
I
that
believe that's-
bill is paid,
Yeah.
is that money considered as part of the capital improvements program balance?
Yes. The money stays in the account, so if there's $649,000 in the water fund, let's use that as a round number. $649,000 sit there, and the council approves a $300,000 project.
The
So,
649,000 is the
in-
trustees' trust funds?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
So finance has a resolution that says $300,000, so they make a notation that now the balance, because there's $300,000 committed for that project, is now $349,000 available for anything else that the water department may have. As Sean said, as an expenditure is made, we would forward that, whether it's a monthly basis or however they do that, to request that funds to come out of the capital reserve account to reimburse the town for the expenditures. So we keep track of it that way. So that way the money stays in capital reserve and only what we need comes out. And then what happens is the sheet you have is finance saying, based upon the projects that have been committed, you have the trustees report over here, we have a resolution here, you now have a new total. And that's what's happened, is that you're looking at what is the total minus the resolutions that have been adopted over time. That may be the discrepancy that you see, Roseanne. And so therefore, that's what it is. Then they add in the totals for monies that are going to be going in, and you have a new total.
Oh, well, good, but on June 30th, when the auditors do the audit, that's where that amount of money should be consistent. The amount of money that's what the auditors are here, to balance the books. So if they say on June 30th, 2011, there's $600,000 in the Water Department Capital Reserve Fund, that's,
Right, but Leo, the only problem is if a project goes over 2 fiscal years and the council's authorized it, the finance department has reduced it, it hasn't been spent out, so it hasn't been drawn from the trustees of the trust fund. So that's why the numbers could be different.
Correct.
And the
also-
auditor will just have a line item that says funds authorized but not expended, or something like that.
Correct.
That's,
It's
so, it's a
incumbent,
bookkeeping
you say.
thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The audit does
It's
gives
encumbered, right.
that picture of June 30 that the trustees have of what has come in and what has gone out. And then when the auditors come in, finance will give the auditors the resolutions, because they match them up, and they will also give them how much has been expended out of that resolution that the project is still continuing. So as they're doing their books, they're reconciling that to show, how much of the project is left, and then, there's going to be a new number, yes. But what we're giving you is the trustees' report as to what has been incorporated and what has been expended from it at that point in time.
So at best, that sounds like that's a floating number.
It is.
Well,
Don't
it's not,
disagree.
it's
But it's
it's
firm
not
in the sense
floating.
that they keep track of it upstairs.
Assuming the finance department's up to speed on all the authorizations and encumbrances, then the number there is what's actually available.
Maybe it should,
Some of the money hasn't been spent yet, physically spent, it's been encumbered, so it hasn't been brought out of the trustees of the trust funds
Right.
and transferred to the
and
general
that's the
fund.
information I think we need to know, because
We just need
Leo's
to-
right. You're looking at a figure that's inflated on that side, but yet the reality is it's been encumbered on this side, but in between.
Correct, but you have to remember, the audit, the trustees have asked, the trustees that are, taking care of the funds, what is the balance as of 6/30, and that's what they're saying. It is based upon what's been put in and what's been taken out, this is the number, and that's what the auditors work from. They then take that number and they say, okay, the town's also needs to encumber these dollars for these projects. And
Perhaps
that number
what
will
we
be
need
different.
is copies, when you do this again, copies of the resolution, so we can subtract that information from that tall number on that side
Yep.
and what it
Yeah.
looks like
That's
on
easy
this
enough to
side.
do.
But
So-
what we're getting in
Because we keep
reports
track of that upstairs.
is not the amounts that are available. we're getting the total amount, the ones available and not spent. And that's the confusing
Well,
factor.
no, I think in the report,
the
this report
499 is
is the
what's
number that's
available.
available.
Right.
Which
And when
to
we-
me,
I mean, that one's confusing.
And when we do a resolution,
I understand that.
It-
What I'm going to
we'll
say
call
is.
upstairs and say, what is the balance in the account?
Right. But when we get information, we might make different decisions.
Yep.
Because we're getting misinformation that on 7/1, we had over $1 million in water, and we didn't really have over $1 million in water, and we might have made a different decision in what we would do forward.
And I don't think you meant misinformation, information that we don't, it's not clearly explained what exactly
Up
it's
to
saying.
date, right.
Okay.
Interpreted.
So, I think maybe what we need is this chart either to be thrown away or redone, because this is the one that says there's $1,188,000.
What's the date on that?
October 31st.
That's it, there's 1,188,000 on 7/1/11.
Yeah, there's a lot of different sheets with different numbers, that's why. I wrote
What
them
that
down.
sheet right there is meant to provide you is what is in yellow is the recommendations of the CIP committee.
Yep.
That's basically what it does. It provides you that number of the work that they
Their
did.
numbers on the information they got that's all over the, Brian, would it be proper for me to make a motion regarding what, we can make motions, can't
You
we?
can, we only can request information.
We have the legal right to request information.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
just
I'd like to
saying
make a motion to instruct the town administrator to get in touch with Municipal Resources, Inc. within 24 hours to do a quick audit of this water sewer so we know exactly what we're dealing with.
It's not
that-
good.
We don't have the authority to do that,
Right.
Roseanne.
I don't think.
That's not
we-
an information
we
request,
can't
that's telling a
expend money.
staff member.
We
what
can
to
make
do.
that recommendation.
Okay, so I would make a request that I will leave Mr. Winowski's name out of it, so I'm not telling an employee what to do, that we get an audit from an outside entity, and I know MRI can do it expeditiously, and we have it as soon as possible, so we know what number we're working with. This is,
So, okay, you made your motion.
Okay.
Is there a second? Okay. Motion fails for lack of a second. I think that we should give the finance department, there's a new finance director
We have an interim director right now.
on staff, Ed and the trustees, the chance to report back and explain it to us before we start suggesting that we need an audit. That just feels a little unfair.
We'll have that for you for next Monday.
I think the two things that are important to me, whatever, is both the fund balance of the capital reserve fund and the fund balance, the water fund balance. As of some date, let's face it, the water fund balance changes every day. I mean, every time someone pays a water bill, the fund balance goes up every day. What
We'll
we
make it as
need-
of Friday.
Pardon?
We'll make it as of Friday for you.
Sure.
As of some date specific, what is the water fund balance? I got a letter from Don Parnell here just a while ago. I was looking at it a few minutes ago. I'm not gonna find it, but that we had a water fund balance of $2 million as of whatever, and I asked him to let it you say, no, what is this, and what date, and you asked Don to send me all the resolutions that come out of that, and he sent me 3 resolutions that come up to 300,000 or whatever, but there was no balance. So I would like to get a request that we get the water fund balance, plus also the water fund capital reserve balance as of, and if there's any deletions or taken out of that balance that haven't been expended. No, is there many withdrawals or capital reserve approval that have been taken out that haven't been spent yet in the past 6 months?
Off the top of my
What do
head,
we
I don't-
have going?
There's none on this list.
You know,
Yeah, I can't think of any
Can't do
lately,
none.
no.
So basically,
For all.
there should be a final, there's nothing hanging. We have
It
no-
should be a number that isn't gonna be clouded by some outstanding resolution that
Right,
hasn't been
right,
spent.
that's what I guess I'm asking.
Okay,
So that information will extract or show any resolutions out there.
Yes.
Well, they're saying there is no resolution.
No.
no resolutions in
Outstanding.
2011.
Or there may be outstanding one, but we'll work that into everything.
They could be still outstanding, like I said, but from a previous.
But they would be automatically deducted from the total. It's the
Okay,
trustees
they would show
report.
that would be encumbered.
Well, I think if there are outstanding resolutions, that ought to be part of the information.
You're right, exactly. No, I agree with you. I
Right,
agree.
okay.
Right.
Okay,
I had one quick question.
okay, sure. I wasn't gonna, you
Oh.
kinda went like way over there.
Oh.
Capital reserves and trying to
Have
put somewhere.
there been any internal fund transfers from the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund to the town in the last 12 months for any work done on, I know last year, and if the person who sent me the RSA pertaining to water, town funds being expended for anything that has to do with water, I wish they would send that RSA back to me again because I can't find it. But when there's a water main break and the town fixes it, or I know when they put the wires to the Macintosh well, all that's for water and/or sewer. It's all done for water. And so you have a water main break, the town goes out and fixes it. Does the enterprise, water or sewer enterprise fund pay back the town for the town employees for fixing that?
No.
Okay.
And-
There is an RSA that pertains to that, and it is a requirement. And I brought it up last year. I can't find the RSA. I wish the person would send it to me again, because that is something I think that should be done. I mean, the taxpayers should be paying for any work done on the enterprise funds for water and sewer.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Any other questions for Sean? All right, you ready to go to the sewer?
He feels like he's been in it for a while right now after this.
That's just the next.
Next
Next
tab.
page
over.
Next page is
Now, this one, I
76.
believe there's been a change to. Are you ready to share? Do you know what that is?
The changes to the salaries?
It was changed from what we got in this numbers are different than what. Now, it's almost time for that 5-minute break that is on the agenda. Invisible ink. So, the total number, Ed gives us that big colored spreadsheet.
Yeah.
The total line item cost is the same, and he saved money in the water department, so we need to have revised numbers here because they're not quite the
Yeah.
same.
Yes, yes, and I have those.
Okay.
I have those
Why don't
already.
you explain those so we're all on the same page at the beginning, then?
The wages on the top of the line, they're actually supposed to be 172,716,
Not 207,
not 207.
17 what?
172,716.
All right.
And if you go down to unemployment insurance, it says 5580, that should be 580.
Oh, there's an extra $5,000 in there, okay.
Yeah, it was, looks like it
It's
was a typo.
yeah. Yep. $580, okay. Is that the only two? And so what that makes the bottom number 948,241? So the total for wastewater treatment now is 948,241 instead of 987,557.
So that's,
Do you know what the sewer fund balance is?
I do not know what the sewer fund balance is. I know it's in a plus for the first time in a while.
Oh, here we go. Notes from last time. It wasn't a quiz. I just found it
Yeah,
is approximately $25,000
that's probably pretty close.
for the enterprise fund for sewer.
Fund balance.
25,000. They had a deficit issue.
That was as of around the earlier in the year. Yeah, in a nutshell, what happened is back in 2005, there was $500,000 in the fund balance, and basically, it was deficit spended all the way till about 2009, 2010. We changed the rates, and now we're on the mend of getting a fund balance back. And I'll speak to revenues and expenses in a moment. Overall, the budget's up at about $46,000. Salaries are up at about $4,500, and that was from a miscalculation of salaries from last year. Other notables, health insurance, because I guess there was some employee changes or somewhat of health insurance, went up $1,500. Chemicals is up $3,000. And then the last thing is we have a line item called new permit. Everyone knows we received our draft permit, 3 milligrams per liter of total nitrogen. Some of the things that attributed to that are we have an additional bacteria testing that we'll have to do. There's approximately $3,200 yearly cost to do that test. Plus, there's another $6,000 or so that we'd have to purchase some equipment to do the test. So a one-time cost plus a yearly cost.
Mandatory by EPA?
Yes. Also, we'd have to do 3 effluent screens, which would be around $3,500. It's another test we'd have to do the first 3 quarters of when our permit actually comes into effect. And then the rest of that is to deal with permit issues, other permit issues. Some of the things that aren't included in there that is a part of the new permit is sewer mapping and some collection system work. The revenues for the sewer this year were targeted to be around $1,003,000, and the current budget is $902,000. That was to hopefully give a $100,000 boost to the
Fund balance
fund balance
of the enterprise fund.
of the sewer fund balance. Where are we on revenues this year? We're on target to hit those revenues and probably a little bit more based on the first 6 months. I would say we're probably going to be about $1,010,000, $1,020,000 based on revenues.
What's
So
the percentage increase on the average water and sewer?
on the average water sewer bill,
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what it was, but I mean, the increase was 40 cents per hundred.
Per hundred.
Over 5, and the old rate was 5.20. So it was approximately 8%.
Yeah, 8%.
Yeah. Where was I? But even with this budget, the revenues look like they're going to exceed what our budget is. So that is a good thing. One thing to note is there's $100,000 going into CIP. Do I think that's enough? No, not with all the things that are coming along.
How much is it?
$100,000. The request was $175,000.
Oh, they cut it down on it?
But the reason it was cut is because that's what we can afford. I guess if there's any questions.
So the 100,000 is coming from the revenue side, but going to be tilted over to CIP. Is that what?
It goes into the sewer capital reserve fund,
Yeah. And
and it's paid for by the rate users.
by the rate users of the sewer users.
So you're projecting that much going over to,
That's the
Wow.
request. That's what we're putting in.
that's a lot of money, particularly with taxes the way they are and well, no, that's unrelated, I guess, but it's still coming out of the individual's pocket what they have to pay. You know, tax increase, water increase, sewer increase, and yet we're gonna put 100,000 away.
100,000 is coming out of the rates of what's being
Right.
paid right now.
Yeah, I understand that.
And there would be based on this, if we with a $948,000 budget, if we hit expected revenues, there'll be probably about 60 to $70,000 in, to help the fund balance, the sewer fund balance.
100,000 has to be put in the fund balance, period. Whether they,
In the capital reserve.
Yeah.
they
I know.
get that
Because it's
200,000
a
less
enterprise
revenues,
fund, self-supporting.
100,000 has to go into
Right.
the fund balance.
And it's
By
very,
statute.
and it's very important to make sure that we get that fund balance back up to where it needs to be.
And can you explain to the public why? Because I think that has to go towards what, another facility and matching funds, or?
No, the fund balance is really for emergencies and for cash flows and those kind of things. That's not even for another facility.
So if we're gonna build another facility, where are we putting monies?
That's the $100,000 in the capital reserve
Yeah.
fund is, partially.
Okay.
Ideally, I had to go to the town council this year for monies out of the fund balance to empty a digester, because I didn't have the money to do it in the budget, and it was unplanned.
And it's out
You
of the
cannot-
enterprise fund balance.
The town council cannot spend money out of the fund balance. They can spend money out of their budget, but not out of the fund balance. The fund balance, if you budgeted $1 million, that's all you can spend. You can't take money out of the fund balance. The only thing you can spend money is out of your budget. You cannot, you do, if, for instance, if you have a $1 million budget and you only take in 800,000 in revenues, 200,000 comes out of the fund balance.
Yeah.
But you can't say, I got a
I
$1 million
can't.
budget, let me finish. I
Yeah.
got $1 million budget, I have an emergency, I want to spend $1,050,000. You can't do that. They cannot take money out of the fund balance. You must live within your budget,
Where do they get the money for emergencies?
out of your budget. If you have an emergency for $50,000 and you need it, then they've got to take $50,000 out of your budget somewhere else. You cannot overspend your budget. There's an RSA statute, and they cannot take it out of the fire department or police department or any other budget. The budget,
Yeah,
the RSA states that the water department money can only be spent for water department purposes. And you can't say, well, we'll take 100,000 out of the water department funds because the fire department or police department runs over. You must spend it only for that. There's
It's non-transferable.
well, I know it's not
Yeah.
transferable.
And so, what I'm saying is that if you look at the RSA, it will say you cannot spend more than what was approved by the legislative body. I had that RSA, I was looking for it, I looked at it today home, and it's in all this mess somewhere. But that's the statute, is you must only spend what the legislative body is authorized. The only way you can spend over that is you gotta go to the budget committee, they approve it, you go to DRA, they approve it, then you can take money out of the fund balance and spend it. Once you get approval of both the budget committee and the Department of Revenue Inspection, then you can take money out of the fund balance. And if you have $1 million budget and they approve 100,000, then your budget goes to 100,100,000.
Seems to me we've had that conversation some years back.
We actually did voted for one a couple of years ago.
Right, I thought we
Not in
did.
water, but in something else.
Right, so,
What is
Did that happen?
huh?
Did that happen?
I'm not sure if I agree with Leo's analysis when it comes to enterprise funds, and we should try to look into that.
I'll get you the RSA.
Okay,
It's,
sure.
It's 48, I think, RSA 48.
If the $100,000 is transferred this year to the capital reserve, there'd be about $550,000 at the end of next year. I mean, so that's not that much money when we're talking about a $7 million or a $20 million treatment plant.
well, that's my question. Where are we putting money aside for a new treatment plant?
That's it.
You're saying
That's
it's
part of
not.
it.
I mean,
We're not putting enough. Ideally, you would start building up that transfer so it would support the bond cost.
Yeah, that's,
And the bond cost is
and sometimes.
probably close to $700,000 or more.
oh, 800,000.
Yeah, and we also, at some point, if and when it becomes federal grants again, matching funds for a new facility. So right now, you're saying the only money that's going in for that is just like this $100,000.
Yes.
That's it, because we overspent the fund balance, so there was no money in there.
Okay, we get,
I mean,
hold on a
it's-
second. We can't use the word fund balance because it's going to
Okay, so-
confuse everybody
all right,
with
but
the other
anyway,
issue.
it-
It's the enterprise fund.
Enterprise fund balance for sewer.
Thank you.
What had happened is we were deficit spending for years. From 2005 till 2009, we were deficit spending the sewer enterprise fund balance.
So we were spending more money than we were bringing in, so the
Yeah.
fund
Right.
balance was
That's-
dropping
That's
in
how
the
your
enterprise
fund balance goes negative.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have $1 million
So-
budget,
So
and you
what
spend $1
happened?
million and you only get 800,000 in revenues, then 200,000 comes out of the,
enterprise fund balance.
right.
Right.
So
That's
what has
how it
happened
works.
is back in 2008, we did the rate study, which we changed the rates to make them more fair to everybody, and then we raised the rates for the past 3 years. Did we raise them as much as they should be? Probably not, but this isn't the time that you should be raising the rates. You know, we're trying to be, people are in tough times. We're trying to build the fund balance back slowly so that we're not
To a safe level.
really nailing every resident out there. Because what's happened now is, now you're paying for all the increases, but you're also paying to replace the fund balance.
Okay. Roseanne, I think?
How much would you feel, how much would you like in the enterprise fund balance?
I'd like to see around $400,000 in that range, 400 to 500.
What's in there now?
25.
20, at the end of this year, we're hoping to have around 125. Which
I
is,
happen to just find my.
which is
thing.
better than negative
Yeah.
66.
It will bring it up. This is RSA 38 water funds. The funds received from the collection of water rates shall be kept as a separate and distinct fund to be known as the water fund. Such fund shall be allowed to accumulate from year to year, shall not be commingled with town or city tax revenues, and shall not be deemed part of the municipality's general fund accumulated surplus. Such fund may be expended only for purposes specified in RSA 3828, which said you can only spend it for water issues or for the previous expansion. And expenditures shall be within amounts appropriated by the local legislative body for the water department. And the same thing, so this is chapter 38, section 3829. Section 3828 tells you what you can expend only for water department issues. So expenditures shall be within the amounts appropriated by the local legislative body. And and it shall only be, so basically, the water fund balance is not considered part of the general town fund balance. And this says, so if you have a 200,000 fund balance, that says in the last 50 years, you've collected $200,000 in revenue more than you've spent in the last 50 years. Many towns, you'll see, run a negative water fund balance. I see, with it Farmington, there's a few towns up north have been and they are just putting money in, and people just won't vote to raise the amount up, but it's
We'll have to take that matter up, I guess, separately.
What?
We'll have to take that up separately. How to resolve that. Any other questions on sewer? Okay, can we take a 5-minute recess? And then we'll move on to fire rescue solid waste. Or not.
Well, you could, he's doing all
Back
right.
to, there's so much bloody.
Sounds all right to me.
I know. I saw this ad. Did you see the ad he has on TV? It's like, cutting by a trillion. That's trillion with a T. Boom. Department of Commerce. Boom. Department of HUD. Boom. Department of... I was like, whoa. It was the most aggressive political ad in support of yourself than ever.
You're on. Right? Careful.
Okay. That's all right.
Everyone heard you boom, boom.
That's good.
I think you're giving us rap lessons up here, Brad.
Yeah, you don't want me singing or anything close to that. Fire rescue. Okay, so thank you, Rick, for coming back.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't get called out on an
I
emergency.
never know what the hang I'll find that she's got it.
Out in the woods all night.
Page 33.
Let's just make this from the guy in blue and all that pixels.
And to laugh on the cheap.
Pay for us $27.
Some of us are
Glasses.
slow here. What section is it near? 'Cause I'm missing it. Oh, there it is. I found it. I found it.
All the way on the left of the third.
Okay.
What page?
Page 33 on the blue sheet. It's in after vehicle maintenance, if you're looking in the tabs. So Rick, we're offering everybody a chance to tell us any highlights or big changes.
Yes. In the fire and rescue, there are only 3 areas that have changed, and it's salaries and diesel fuel. Everything else is either a decrease or the same exact budget line item as last year. And in the salaries, the increases, what happened was last year there was an error. They work a 45-hour work week, and it was based on a 40. So that's what that change there
So what
is.
should the number be?
81,478.
Oh, what's there?
Yes,
Oh,
I'm just, if you
oh,
looked
okay.
at last year, you'd say, why is that up? That's what happened.
Okay, so
There's really no big surprises, no big changes, that's the big thing. Diesel fuel is up slightly, and I think this budget's up about just under 4% with those increases, but there's no changes really, other than that. So, if you have any questions, I can answer
Alan
them.
has a question, I think.
Well, maybe it's for Al, I don't know, but the part-time salaries, the number for the council is similar to the department request, but the administrator had lowered it. And that, I haven't seen that very often in these line items where the council went back up.
That's the administrative secretary.
You know what I mean? It's the third line. See where it says 119, 102, 118, and usually the council has been the same or lower than the administrator.
All I can tell you is that the number that is put under the council is correct. It could have been that just when I was putting the numbers in,
Okay, so
it could
your
have been
number
my
maybe
error
should be
then.
no.
Right, there was no discussion.
Okay, thank you.
The math indicates that the secretary was cut out of Ed's,
Okay, it's just a
or forgot.
for the typo. Okay, thank you.
Rick, it's been how many years? 3 years since we've had full-time?
4, going on 4.
So how has it impacted or how is there was some someone keeps pushing a button. I don't know who Gary is, so volunteer relationship between the volunteers and the full-time, and when it was first started there was concern about possible impacts on morale or availability.
Yeah, no, it's been working out quite well. It was a pretty smooth transition. There was a few things that we've adjusted, but they all work together well. They get along well. There hasn't been a big turnover because they feel like they're taking over. Or they actually, the full-timers do a lot of the stuff that now these guys just need to really go on calls and train. They do everything else.
How is is the call? Do you anticipate a request in the anytime future, next couple of years for additional staff?
What we do now with them working a 45-hour work week and splitting their shifts, one of them works 7 to 4, the other one works 8 to 5, so we have coverage, at least one person for that hour on either end. Typically, it's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. that you kind of need them, but we've been able to make that work, having at least one of them there. So I don't see right now the call volume is going up, but it's, as far as the time frame of when the calls come in, when you look at it, it's more when people are home, not away at work, because unfortunately, everyone in Newmarket has to go somewhere else to work, so. Our high times are usually evenings, overnight, early morning,
When you have people back in town?
and then, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
I question why, I mean, if you have two, what you're doing, you overlap in 1 hour at each end of the day. And I guess the question is, why not more overlapping? Is there a much where you need two at one time?
Yeah, from 7 to 5,
Yeah.
we can cover our calls with what we have for staffing.
Without, so you don't need volunteers
We-
for 7 to 5?
Well, we need that first hour.
Yeah.
You know, one guy's alone first hour, and there's a guy alone for the last hour.
But you need two guys to go out on the call?
For medicals, you do, for medical.
So-
And the bulk of what we
At
do is
6
medical.
o'clock, you gotta wait for a volunteer.
Yes,
7,
yes.
before the guy can go out. But after 7, you got two guys there, you can go right out.
I have one guy there 7 to 8.
7, 8, all right, that,
Typically, we can still cover that with another person,
okay.
typically.
So, I'm confused. So you generally just have two guys on for that overlap for that 1 hour?
There's two people from 8 to 4.
Two from 8 to 4?
Yeah.
The two
From
full-time
7 to 8
employees?
a.m., there's one,
Okay.
and from 4 to 5, there's one. And we're able to cover that with our volunteers if there's a call in that window. As far as expanding that, there has been some concerns on the weekends, now that everybody has so much going on. But we've been able to cover it. If you look at our records, we've only lost a couple of calls on that time frame. And we still are a volunteer department from 5 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning and weekends, so you're not gonna cover every single call. But it's not alarming. It's very, very minimal.
Sorry, what does that mean? You don't cover every single call, so what happens to that call?
Well, if there's, it's typically the medical aids, because you need to have 2 licenses to do a transport. So if you only get one member, they can't do the call, so they have to call in a mutual aid ambulance. We still go and treat, we just can't do the transport.
Any other questions on fire rescue? All right, your other related department is solid waste, I believe? The last one
Yes.
that you're involved with?
The solid waste budget that is being presented is a decrease of 3.5% roughly.
What page is that?
52.
The one item that has been removed is the spring cleanup. That's something that we were on a every other year cycle, so that has been cut from the budget, just to make everybody aware. That's the big change here. There's a very slight increase in construction debris, about $1,200, and in the trash bag order, there's an increase of roughly $2,000.
So it'll be 2 years without spring cleanup in a
It would
row.
be 2 years.
Okay.
It might be.
We're on an off year this spring, and this will throw us off for the next year.
Is there the revenue detail associated with the transfer station and the trash bags? How detailed is that? Like, would we be able to know how, how many trash bags are sold? We'll know that, but how many TVs are disposed of? How many
That's,
refrigerators?
the refrigerators, we can get a count off the Freon removal because they have to be, it has to be removed,
Yeah.
so. The televisions kind of all go in.
Well, here, let me ask this. I know I bought the little, gone to the police station off hours, or that's where we used to have to go. Now you can do it there. So when the accounting office, maybe this is a question for Ed, gets that piece of paper and the check associated with it, how much detail goes in? Does it just say dump truck, or does it categorize it by the categories on the form?
I'll have to check
The reason I'm trying to figure out if we're actually charging enough to cover the actual cost. So if I bring in, you know, Drew's pickup, which I use a lot for taking stuff to the dump, and it's full, and are getting charged $25, is it $25 actual cost to us, or are we making money, or are we covering
We
costs?
do pretty good with the coupons with our rates right now as far as the construction demo debris, bulky items. We pretty much cover that cost. If you look at the revenues, it's under transfer receipts, I think is how it's worded, or something like that. And if you look at it, I believe we brought in around, I don't have my revenues with me this evening.
There, we have
Was
solid
it-
waste, here we go.
Should be a line for trash bags, recycle bins, and
We got $46,000 from the landfill receipts,
23, it's the second line down.
$140,000 from garbage bags, $1,000 from recycling bins, and 40 grand from United Technologies, which is for the landfill testing.
when you look at the transfer receipts, the 40,
Yeah.
that includes the televisions,
Solid waste.
refrigerators,
Okay.
bulky waste, that's all of those items.
Yes. Ellen, and then Roseanne.
The construction debris, that's for town projects that you're paying to dispose of town construction debris, or?
It's folks bringing in construction debris or bulky items, things that have to go to.
Okay, is that what Brian was asking, or this is a different category than?
He referenced TVs, I think, but it's, if you use the coupon, that's those receipts.
Okay, so that should probably be revenue neutral. I mean, people are paying to dispose of that, and then you're paying to take it somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that that was your question, right, Brian? Is that breaking even?
Yeah, what I was gonna
Item
do
like
was add up all the costs associated with, like, the construction debris is 43,000, and the part-time salary we wouldn't need if we didn't have a transfer station, that's 10,000 basically, and then $1,500 for freon removal. All that together is more money than we're getting in landfill receipts. So it seems like we might wanna look at adjusting the rates to cover the actual cost of operating the transfer station.
You're trying to cover the attendant and everything?
I think you should look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, my personal philosophy is that you should be responsible for the trash you produce and the costs associated with that, because it might change the decisions you make about what you buy and how you dispose of it. But
So,
anyway, sorry,
yeah,
go
sort of
ahead.
related to that, I brought this up when we met last time, but, so a proportion of residents buy the orange bags, which is the $140,000, is that
Yep.
correct? But obviously the cost is higher than that, as I understand it, and the trash hauler that picks up the orange bags also picks up the recycling bins.
For the town or for the private hauler?
For the town.
The town does curbside both.
Right.
That's correct.
But only the people buying the orange bags are sort of paying into the system, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, do you know what proportion of town people?
It's very
One or the other?
difficult to track. They all have different days. Some people are on an every other week plan. I don't have those numbers.
Is there a way to, it just seems like it's not quite fair, the current system.
It's always been this way. In the beginning, it was the plan that when we went to the bags, it was going to cover everything. When we did the recycling, where we brought it up there and kind of did it ourselves, it was able to work. But ever since that went away and we went to curbside, all our bags really cover is the MSW. It doesn't cover recycling. And it can't unless there's a fee involved for recycling.
Well, one of my concerns is if you look around at people's recycling bins, and it's not necessarily, perhaps entirely their fault, because I'm not sure it's clear to people what they can put in the bin, but I think people are putting solid waste in the recycling bin, which is probably not getting recycled.
They would reject.
Therefore, we're paying for people trash through the recycling program, and that,
Best Way will not take a bin if people are abusing that. They'll put a tag on it and leave it.
okay, I'd like to see where they recycle all the material. I mean, it's quite diverse what people put in their bins.
And now we're single stream now too, so you don't have to separate anything.
And do we know if they're really recycling all that material?
Material right now is going to New York.
Just going,
I believe it's Albany for recyclables.
and we're paying, but it's at a cost to the town.
It's a cost to the
Yeah.
town. We don't get any funds back. They don't charge us, we don't get anything back. We did join the Concord group, but that won't open for a year from now, roughly.
If everybody bought orange bags, would that start to balance it out a little better?
I still don't think that it would cover everything, 100%. It would help, but it's not gonna cover the recycling.
But if people brought their recycling to the transfer station themselves, it would. If we didn't have the curbside.
Yeah, I actually, there's been a request about doing away with curbside, I guess. And I don't hold these numbers, but I do have a little bit of information I can pass out.
What do you mean there's been a request?
There's been a request from a group.
Does that mean a petition's been submitted? Let's be more
There
specific.
was a request that came in to see, there was a request that came in,
Yeah, you probably should go to a microphone. Thank you.
there was a request that came in to see what would be the savings if the town went back to the old way, which I don't think we've ever had an old way of doing business as through picking up garbage, which was always been picked up. People didn't bring it in the past. To go back where people would bring their refuse to the transfer station on a weekly basis. And I asked Rick if he would put together, to look at that and see what the cost would be for the town if we were to do that. And that's what he's provided you here.
Doesn't make sense.
What I, in the number under the operation costs to the far right, I don't have a hard firm number there yet. I got the request last Wednesday and this is where I'm at. So don't hold me to this number, but just so you can see, if this budget was approved for curbside pickup, we're talking $287,950. If we wanted to just do something at our transfer station and not have curbside pickup for MSW or recyclables, make everybody bring it up there and open up the facility 5 days a week. The initial startup cost to be able to operate would be $156,000 for improvements to the facility that we have right now on Ash Swamp Road and purchasing some additional equipment. And this is the cheapest equipment to do this. I've done quite a bit of research and this would be the cheapest. The yearly operation, you're looking at, you'd need 2 full-time people up there. The MSW tipping fee is a pretty good number. The recycling, I don't have a good number right now. The market's going bad for single stream, so there could be fees. I haven't been able to get all of my answers. The trucking is okay, and the operational cost is maintenance and electricity fees and things like that. The only other thing that's not in this is the roll-off truck is up for replacement in 13-14. And if we were to really consider to do this, that truck's going to be running full-time. We would want to move that up in the rotation. The monies are in the CIP, so that's not funds that need to be raised per se. We have the funds. So I didn't throw that in here. But as far as the operational cost, when we start going to Concord, there may be a little more of a savings. If we were, today, they told me we would get $30 a ton if we were bringing material up there. But the market is starting to go the other way right now. So there's the possibility that in a year we could be paying $5 or $10 to bring our stuff up there, possibly. But
yeah.
I just don't have real good numbers, but just to show you that, you know, if you took out that initial startup, you know, you might have a $50,000 savings there. But I don't know how good that number is. I don't have all the information, but I was asked to present it, so here we
On
are.
this proposed current operating cost for pickup 287, that doesn't include disposal.
Yes, that's pickup and disposal of
And
curbside That doesn't include anything that happens at the transfer station, though. That's just curbside pickup.
I know, but it picks it up and it takes it to.
Gets it to the where, to bed.
So it's
Yeah.
both the collection and tipping and the tipping fees.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think, Rick, that the number is more accurate if it's 136 plus 124, because their budget has 730 tons at 171, and then there's transfer station recycling and electronics recycling in that curbside pickup recycling contract, but it's not curbside. The recycling, transfer station, there's 77 tons at $212 a ton at the transfer station for recycling, and there's electronics at 10,000, so that's not curbside pickup.
No.
So I think 287 is probably more like 260.
Well, I was just referring to the curbs, it was strictly curbside. So I was just trying to reflect on curbside.
Right, I'm saying it should be 260, not 287.
So the recycling pickup is more expensive per ton than solid waste?
Yes.
Yes.
It's, remember, it's not just, they're not charging you for picking it up, they're charging you for picking it up, transporting it, and then sorting, disposing, whatever. That's the contract that exists.
Jack? Thank you. You said the recycling market is down. All I've ever heard was that it was down, frankly, since the inception of the whole thing. And there are, as she had just, Ellen, excuse me, said that there seems to be such a mix-up with what could be considered good recycles with trash. And there are people, I have noticed myself, in many areas of the town, it may be all trash. Even if it isn't all trash and there's some recycles in there, you wouldn't know it because they're using a rubberized container with a cover. And that's supposed to be all right instead of an orange bag?
If it has a Best Way bumper sticker on it, it's okay.
Well, these don't have Best Way bumper stickers. I don't even know what they look like. But I don't see anything that says Best Way.
I can tell you.
I'm just asking so that I can go out and get a bucket and start dumping it instead of paying $11 for this.
If there's a problem with an individual, I get a phone call and I'm made aware of it by Best Way. We don't do the pickup, but I can tell you that when there are violators, we do hear about it because they do tell us that we're leaving their material. So when they call you, this is why. They do make us aware of the situations when there's a situation, but we don't run into a lot of it.
I don't think this is an isolated case that I'm thinking about or anybody else, because it's, well, we say, wait a minute, that's not the bin. You have to pay $3 for that, don't you, after the first one, that's gratis?
$10.
Huh?
I think it's $10.
$10? I've been here a long time. So, I don't see how unless one of the first things you do is get a good market price and where we're going with recycling. I don't even know what half the things that recycle might be valid for or be useful for myself, but I suppose we're buying them every day. But how do we keep an eye on that? So on the bottom line, the MSW thing is down anyway. We're going to go start changing everything every 5 or 6 years, and end up with a worse idea instead of a better one.
This isn't my idea, I'm just presenting something I was asked to do, so.
Where's this come from?
I'm not really sure.
No, I think that's where we should go back and start all over again.
Alan?
Well, I just wanted to say, I do think recycling is really important. It just seems to me that it'd be nice to know if we're recycling the right materials and that they're actually getting recycled. I mean, the whole point is environmentally we want to do this because it's costing us money, otherwise why would we do it, right? And that it's being done fairly across town and that we're recycling materials that are getting recycled and they're not just getting dumped in a landfill somewhere, because then we're really paying for people to dump their garbage in the recycle bin. And I'm not saying we are, it's not clear that we know the answer to that.
When the town renewed its contract with Best Way, one of the things that they said to us is that they were willing to move Newmarket to single stream recycling. So basically today, a lot of the stuff that you have in front of you can be recycled and it goes into a single bin. When it's brought to wherever they bring it, They then sort it out from there as to what it's going to be recycled and how it's going to be recycled. Now, at the current time, we don't receive anything, as Rick says, with the contract. They bring it away, they bear the cost if they have to get rid of it because there's no revenue that comes to them. So there's good times and there are, positive times for them where they get some dollars in their pocket. The project that Rick's talked about over in Concord is one where the system is all recyclables come in and it goes through a series of sorters and it's sorted out and they then reuse it. They reuse the glass, they reuse the plastic, it's shipped off, it's baled and everything else. That's going to be based upon, what the market bears. We've been told that on average it'll be $30. In some cases it could be higher. There are some times that we're not going to receive any revenue at all. We're going to bring it up there because they have to deal with disposing it. But the benefit to us is that there is going to be a recyclable stream. Our responsibility is to get it up there. We talked a little bit about, Rick and I have talked, how we're going to do it so that way we compact as much of the recyclable material, bring it up there so we're not bringing a 100-yard container that's filled mostly with air. And that's one of the things that we need to continue to research. But if we, as a participant in the Concord Solid Waste Cooperative, we have the opportunity to make a revenue from the recyclables. Maybe we want to look at, that's one thing that people would bring to the transfer station and we would recycle it from there and cut it out from the solid waste contract that we have at the present time. So those are options that we have to look at to see whether it's beneficial and how we can work that.
Does the council still have a solid waste committee? There traditionally was a solid waste committee.
Since I've been here, we haven't had a solid waste committee.
It might be a good thing for the committee to get some people on.
And just in answer to the sheet that Rick gave you, I received an email from an individual in town asking us if we would look at the numbers as to, as I said earlier, if everyone was to bring their refuse to the transfer station, what would be the savings? And that's what I asked Rick to do. So.
Yeah, the final thing that I would like to say about it is that in the beginning, at the inception, the famous let the user pay. We bought the orange bags and we practically threw away a pretty good compacting truck. We fired 3 employees, all people that lived in town paid taxes. That's a consideration. And it wasn't too long before all I heard was the market's down. That's all I hear is the market's down on recycling. Must be some kind of a real tough thing to study, I guess. And I'd like to ask this question because I know nothing about the different trucks, but I sometimes will see one come around. There's 2 bins in the back, and it's easy to see where the orange bags are going, and then it's up to the discretion of whoever's on the back end. One bag goes this way, this goes that way. They're pretty good if they're doing it the correct way. That's all I can say, saving and determining what's waste. And some of that comes out of the bins, too. I've seen them come out of my bins. I practically wrap them up and put a bow on. And so it's, my time is more valuable than that. So I think we ought to get a more explicit idea, we being the constituency, to find out just what's the bare bottom of this thing. Let's just get back to giving 3 or 4 other employees that are citizens and taxpayers and get back to the old way altogether. We can still use the transfer station. As soon as you start using the transfer station, as this thing says already, you put 3 more people on the salaries, and they're going to have to get a going rate for salaries too. So, and then there might be even 4 people and 5 people. Not that I'm against it. If you can save money, go ahead with the study being completed. But I haven't seen it yet.
Right now, like with recyclables, Best Way takes all the risk. We don't care what the market does, and right now, if we had to throw away our recyclables, not throw away, bad word. If we were dealing with them ourselves, that 730 tons, we'd be paying $10 a ton to get rid of it, on top of transportation and the pickup. That's what it's costing. I'm still waiting on one other facility to get, but the facilities I talked to today, it's $10 for a single stream. It's $10 per ton.
So do we get any revenue from recyclables that are taken currently to the transfer station and sorted by us?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify for everybody's sake that the differential cost between the contracts for recycling and trash is $12 a ton. So the recycling is costing an extra $8,000. The trash bags bring in about $4,000 more than they cost. So the trash bags are almost covering the additional cost. If we got rid of recycling, I'm not sure that all that trash and recycling that we currently have would be in orange bags. A lot of it find its way to commercial dumpsters in other towns and in the apartment complexes in Newmarket and stuff. So anyway, let's try to wrap this up because we have the CIP to go through, which is a more significant item than this.
One question. On the household hazardous waste, isn't that every other year?
We've been doing it, we've been trying to do it every year. There's been a lot of people that are taking advantage of it, so we've been putting it in there. We used to do that.
We're talking about paint cans.
Paint cans
chemicals,
and bad stuff.
Thinner, that kind of
Stuff you can't throw away. We've been doing it every year. We used to do it on an every other.
It used to be every other year.
Yeah.
We might consider going back to every other year.
Roseanne?
What do we get for scrap metal?
It depends on the market. We go through the NRA. Metals are coming back up. We've been doing pretty good.
So you have someone come in and pick it up?
He comes in and he actually picks our pile with a cherry picker and puts all the good stuff in this pile.
Do you have records of what we've been getting?
Yes, we get records from the NRA. They send us the ticket.
And do you happen to know how much we've gotten off the top of your head?
I think the last load was like 1,700.
Okay. And that's for a pickup truck full?
No, it's tractor trailer, whatever the guy uses. He has a big truck, comes in with a big cherry picker on it.
Okay, because I know metal's at a premium right now. I mean, I'm not an expert. And also, if you look at the tonnage that's picked up for, the orange bags, it's
860.
All right, 860 tons. And the recycling, you're getting 730 tons. Now, you know yourself, if you ever picked up an orange bag and put one out for yourself, it probably weighs 8 times heavier than that recycle bin that's got all little plastic that's filled with air. So if you do the calculations, it's only a difference of 130 tons. Does Best Way have a way to calculate what the tonnage should be? It sounds to me like we're getting and paying a lot more for the recycling because of the private contractor in town. If you did a comparison as to what the tonnage should be compared to a heavy orange bag compared to a lightweight blue recycle bin. If we're doing 860 in the heavy orange bags, we should not be doing 730 tons in recyclables. So I'm thinking that all the recyclables that are being put out because they put the black bags out with the private trash guy, that's all that extra that we're taking, and I think it's starting to create a problem in the town as to what I think Alan was alluding to. And I think that's creating a problem. If you compare that tonnage, it should be a lot less than 730 tons. So, I mean, it might...
If we're not allowing those people to...
Some of us live near college students, and they put out a lot of glass beer bottles. They weigh a lot, and I know paper weighs a lot. I put out a lot of paper.
Yeah.
Newspapers, magazines.
My blue bin is heavier than my trash bag.
Really?
Absolutely.
He doesn't have a kid with diapers.
Anymore. No, they're heavy.
Wet ones, you kidding me?
Wet ones, yeah.
It's wet paper.
Yeah. Okay. I think that a committee of the council or whatever to work on that and come up with options for consideration is a great idea.
Oh, did the 107,000, almost 108,000 for the employees, include all benefits and retirement and everything?
That's what I was told.
Okay.
All right, so we're ready to move on to CIP. And Leah's trying to adjourn. That's because he's going to be in the hot seat on TV.
Get up here, can I?
If you'd like to present from here, I'm fine with that. It doesn't matter to me.
I can't get the stuff out.
And, well, hold on a second. It's almost 9:15, and
It's 9:10. Let's do it.
we're not going to get through the rest of the items on this, so I'd like to discuss before we get to 9:30. I know Ed and I discussed the town revenue estimates, and he's working to answer some questions, so I think we can hold off on that tonight, because we don't have enough information. We kind of did an overview of the capital reserve funds through our discussion earlier, but I'm sure there might be some more questions. And we do need to discuss the Budget Committee public hearing date. So my question for the committee is, do we want to just have a little bit of time at the next meeting, like 15 or 20 minutes, to try to get through some of these things? Or do we want to have a separate meeting at some point to finalize the town questions and answers? Or do we want to stay here until 10 o'clock?
Next meeting.
I don't want to stay here until 10 o'clock personally. I got an 8 o'clock.
When is the next meeting, January 9th?
No, our next meeting is at 29th.
29th, right.
With the school budget beginning, and the school staff has made themselves available, even though the school's on vacation, so.
Good.
It's great they did that, but if we change it, it would be
Yeah.
kind of a problem at this
And
point for
that's,
them.
and did we say 6:30 for
Everybody
that
get
one
the
as well?
results of today's
That's what we
votes?
planned on.
We had gone down at 8:30, and it was still counting.
Town
At when?
piece
8:30.
before the school piece?
So the suggestions been made that we start like at 6 o'clock that night, try to hammer through some of the town things that are left, and then start with the school.
So 6 o'clock on the 29th?
So we'll do that, and then we'll see what we get through tonight. Before we do that, the public hearing, the question for the committee is, I've been pushing with the school and the town that we have one public hearing date for the school and town budget. They've decided to do deliberative sessions consecutive nights, which is not our decision. So that date has been scheduled by those two different, by the school at least, for January 17th, which is almost the last night. And the town.
Same thing.
So at this point, our hearing with the public, for them to give us input on a budget, would be January 17th. And I wanted to confirm with the committee that they wanted to do one joint hearing, which means the budgets for both the town and school are presented at one meeting, and all the warrant
Yes,
articles are run
yes.
through. Okay,
Oh,
And that's the 17th, Brian?
January 17th.
that will take a while,
Yes.
so we should be prepared to be there for a while.
And is the proposal for the Budget Committee to vote at the end of that meeting?
I would think that if we are there that long, we probably should not expect to finish that night. The other option that we have is we can revise the budgets that have been proposed to us, and those are the ones that can be presented to the public hearing, so they can see what changes we've already made. And then we do mop-up afterwards. There's no requirement that the budget hearing be on the budget that was given to us.
So the only difference is the public hearing is going to be doing the both of them?
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
That's the only difference at this point.
Is this the first year? Or?
Assuming that at 8 o'clock, the authorization to change the meeting happened. The voters passed it, I'm assuming they did.
Let's go find
There's
out.
You're going to
nothing-
keep it that controlled, huh?
I know the school
There
side
won't
did,
be
I had to sign on
people
it.
yell at you and throwing books and stuff?
I know the school one did.
There's nothing to stop the meeting from being continued.
Oh, yeah, we could always continue it. There's,
But is the 17th the last night we can do what you said?
I think the 18th is the last night that the public hearing can be held, because we have to finalize the warrant by the 30th.
Right.
So we have until like the 28th, to be fair to the staff, to finalize the number that gets put on the official state schedule, which we have to sign off on.
Just a question, suggestion, that once we go through the final things next, on the 29th at 6 PM on the town side, that individually we go through and figure out the places that we would want to reduce, so that we come to a meeting where everybody has their suggestions in place, so that we're not, then, so it would be more concise.
I think that's a very good idea.
On the 29th, have suggestions?
Well, you're not going to present the suggestions on the 29th, because
No,
we're
but
not
the-
going to get through that part.
No, but once that's over, that we individually say, I think that X should be reduced by.
I've
Why?
already written down some stuff, yeah.
Yes.
Looks like other people have too. Okay, so the 17th is the public hearing date. The next meeting we have is next week, the 29th. It's trying to start at 6.
17th is public hearing.
January 17th.
So that's just what it is on here.
Yep.
Okay.
I was just making sure we wanted to do both, because I had been pushing for that. And
Another basketball game.
okay, so let's discuss the CIP, and then we'll end for the night.
Yes.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Brian?
So you got 12 minutes left.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
So in order for us to come together to vote on what we're presenting at the deliberative session, we're gonna have to have another date in there.
Oh yeah, we're going to be meeting more often than we probably anticipated, which is okay. And I think we might need to do like a Saturday longer meeting, because 3 hours at night is getting hard.
It is.
Yeah, it's a long day.
No more Saturday meetings.
We're looking at the CIP budget that's in the packet we got, page 39. I wouldn't look at that sheet, no. That's just telling you what the current year budget impact is. So really, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 different line items for this one, so.
Okay,
Oh, Leo's got that chart out.
so we want to start going down from the top on the sheet that we have.
Okay.
Given on that. Okay, basic vehicle replacement, capital reserve for public works.
So Leo's looking at this thing, which is in it was in the 3-ring binder. It's in the 3-ring binder, because it was originally given to us with the budget. Because this is what has the request in it. Don't look at the first number for current balance, so we don't get confused. Just looking at the request for this year. Right, Leo?
Right.
The yellow highlighted column is.
And that's what the CIP had recommended. We did not have much time after our last hearing on the budget committee. We had 1 week to go through all of these, so we, the vehicle replacement has dropped a bit because they found some different numbers that weren't quite right, so the department requested 150, and we went along with 150. We never did. One thing we really wanted to try to get this year was to try to get on vehicle replacement. We've been talking about for the last 3 years to have the mileage for the last 3 years and repairs for the last 3 years, so the council would have a better idea, and we ended up with just 1 year's mileage. Really, 1 year doesn't tell you anything, because it doesn't tell you how much that vehicle was used in the past year, and 1 year's repairs doesn't tell you much. If you had 3 years, you could see whether one vehicle had been getting a lot of replacement, but we never had a chance to get that, so. Any questions on 150,000? We have each of the vehicles in our CIP separately. All the vehicles that the town owned.
Yep.
All right. Building and grounds. We had 50,000 last year. They requested 50, and we went along with 50. There was no major things. Bridges, there's no request, we didn't put any in. The McAllen Dam, there's 25,000 trying to get money up for that study, I guess, is and the CIP committee went along with the 25,000. That would give them, evidently they spent some of last year's money, the 211 money.
So Leo,
The balance is only 20,000, so.
I don't think that money's for the study. That money would be for repair or removal, would be my guess. Because the study money was a separate warrant article that was passed.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. That was for the eventual, what they think it's nowhere near what the cost is going to be, but it was just we didn't want to boot it up that much, so they only went with the 25,000. And if you look at it, that's what is recommended for the next several years also. The fire truck, that stayed the same as last year. Went up last year when the replacement costs of the fire trucks went up. 2 years ago, we actually made them get new cost estimates of what it would cost, and a lot of these vehicles went up in cost, so the replacement cost was different. So we're up to the 67,800. The library capital reserve fund is still at 8,700, and there is a current balance of 148 in there. Vehicle replacement for the police, that went up last year from the usual 30 to 46 because of added costs. Dispatch, that went up last year and the same amount this year. The CIP dropped that to $1 because there was some question of the future advisability of CIP, of the dispatch as to whether. So that is not being funded this year on the CIP recommendations. Recreation facilities, we had 38,000 in 2012. The department requested 10, and the CIP committee dropped it to 6,875. I can't recall what the reason was for dropping that. Telecommunications, as been told earlier, they did not make a request, and we did not put any in this year. Nor did Channel 13. There's no request, and there's no money put in. The Veterans Memorial Trust, 2000 was 10,000 requested last year. They requested 16,750, and the CIP recommended 14,000. Sidewalk redevelopment, that's a new one that was supposedly based on a failed warrant article last year. I guess there was no money put in last year. Well, it was voted down at the town meeting, right?
Zeroed out.
Yeah, it was zeroed out, so there was no. And there's a request again this year, and I guess they're going to try to put another sidewalk CIP. So CIP, they request. Last year was 490. The department requested 4,250. The CIP committee cut it to 368,876.
Where is he now? Oh, right there.
So Leo, I just have a question. Given the recreation facilities balance is, and I think the balance on another report is lower than that, but it's $200,000.
Used to be almost $1 million. They spent $700,000 on the fields, so now it's down to 362.
If it didn't get the $6,800, it's not going to hurt the end of the world. That's just not enough money. Right now, the balance, according to the trustees of the trust fund for recreational facilities, 134,000.
Yeah, there was part of this is committed. It was some of the money that was held back because of some problems they had at the field, so they didn't pay it, but it was committed. But the money was still in the balance, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the balance on this chart, don't look at it, is,
Yeah.
And what about the,
it looks like there's about $72,000 in recreation facilities right now.
72,000? Okay, not 134.
I see 72 on the capital reserve overview,
Okay.
which includes additions and subtractions.
Okay.
And then the Veterans Memorial Trust, I didn't realize that we'd be spending that much money a year for the next 6 years. That
For what one?
the Veterans Memorial Trust? What are we gonna spend? That's not $100,000 in the next 6 years on for the Veterans Memorial Trust.
Yeah.
That's for the new memorial.
They're proposing a memorial being built.
Okay. It's expensive.
I mean, I think that's something that could be done through private funds. It's not a necessity for the town. They want to do something like that, it'd be great to have, but let them do private fundraisers. We can't just afford $14,000 from Veterans Memorial Trust at this time. And if we put sidewalks in, I know we talked about sidewalks a lot last year, but once we put them in, then we have to maintain them, and we also have to plow them and shovel them and salt them and sand them. I mean, that's a big expense.
Is that for
see your
new sidewalks?
Sidewalk.
That wasn't for new sidewalks.
Oh, where is it? There you go.
That wasn't for new sidewalks last year.
That's for new
Yes, for
sidewalks,
new
yes.
sidewalks.
New sidewalks.
Is there another one then separate from that, or?
Yes.
On repairing sidewalks?
It's in the budget.
There were two of them,
There's a warrant article.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess my question
That
is
number's
about,
not adding up
this came up
correctly.
on some of the departments we discussed on whether,
Numbers, no.
you know, I think it was, let's say cemeteries as an example, there was a $5,000 request for repairs. And I think one of the questions that was raised was, instead of that being in the line item budget, could it come out of the CIP?
That 5,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, that went in their budget, basically.
It's in cemetery maintenance.
Right. Could that come out of the CIP instead of adding 5,000 to the budget?
Could they spend the money out of the capital reserve fund instead of the budget? It's a council decision as the trustees. The council has the authority to expend it out of the fund if it's for the purpose. So
Is there still a balance in the cemetery capital reserve fund? It doesn't show a balance here, that's what I'm...
yeah, there's about $9,000. $9,900.
Or at least we have
That
some
was put in
paperwork.
last year to
One
9,900?
piece or another.
1,876.
Whatever piece.
96.
Trying to see
Yeah,
my
9.
cemetery.
Hey, Drew just pointed out that the sidewalk development, $25,000 is on your list, but it's not in the budget
It's not-
on this, the three-ring binder. And then the total of this column says 368, but it should be 393,876 if you
Yeah, that's what
include
I
the
have.
25,000.
Yeah, that's what I have.
So
Saying that 368 is not correct?
it should be another 25,000 higher if you have $25,000 for the sidewalks.
Oh,
393.
I didn't make that. I don't know who did.
Right, so there's just an error in the spreadsheet. It didn't sum the new additional line, which probably only affects the department request year and the CIP committee recommendation. Well,
Saying it should be 393,876?
yep. The issue is that you have a council set a bottom line number, so 368,876 is what's available.
Well, if this gets through, this is the numbers the council has to put into each of these capital reserve funds.
Well, yeah, but no, it's the number on the pages 39 and 40 in our budget.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying, it's missing $25,000. Anybody else have any questions for Leo about the request through this? And I think we are going to get the supplemental information that is more detail. My memory serves me correctly, that includes like the warrant article language that establishes capital reserve fund and a history of what's going into it and out of it, and some of the vehicles that are in it. If it's that's last year's version. It won't have this year's recommendations in it, but at least they'll have some information.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the municipal transportation improvement under other capital funds that you're not funding on the bottom?
That's the $5 registration fee that you pay.
Okay.
And it goes in there, and that's what the
That's the
council's
$5.
been using to pay for
Okay.
portions of the paving.
All righty. In community recreation, 99,000 we have in there. Where's that from?
My understanding is that that might be the sale of the pines, and it has to be used with a match or something.
There has to be matching funds to spend that. Some matching funds from somewhere.
To spend it.
Community recreation you're talking
It's
about.
on this big sheet.
It's the very bottom sheet. It says community
It's the sale
recreation.
of the pines.
Community recreation. Could that be used for conservation properties?
If you can find matching,
Because if, I mean,
you'd have to look at what the warrant article.
when you get open space like that, that's recreation.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't have any, you're talking to Mr. Land Protection, and we don't have any current projects, so. The Aquifer Land Protection Fund, I was talking with Ed about this, and it would seem to me that that fund was established in '99. I know Herb Dalrymple was pretty involved with it, and I know it was because we wanted to protect land around the water, the groundwater supplies. We haven't really done anything with it, and it pains me to say, but it might not be something we want to keep there, and the voters could authorize transferring it out.
Could be a
I
warrant
think it was
article.
also for surface water, and Ed and I were talking about we need to look back at the records to see what projects that were funded through the open space bond,
Yeah.
and which came out in part out of the Aquifer fund, because some money was supposed to come out of that for, I know, at least one project, and
Yeah.
there's some
For
confusion about whether, yeah.
Well, I think the fund originally had like 99,000 or something like that,
Yeah, so I think it was about 50,000 that
Yeah.
came out, so that sounds about right.
but it would be good to make sure. And then the waterfront improvements, I was talking to Mr. Winowski about that too, and there might be a discussion about whether or not those funds are necessary any longer, given all the great improvements we've done on the waterfront, and whether or not there's any more waterfront improvements that are even possible, given the mill redevelopment and Rivermore's lack of interest historically, from my memory of.
Well, when we discussed this, we also discussed it with Rick as to what he could do about the landing.
The docks and so forth.
Yeah.
The what?
The landing at the bottom of Water
Public
Street.
docks.
Yeah. The public docks. And
Oh, I
the
wasn't
landing
here
up
for
by
that.
Twin Rivers.
Yeah, I don't think that the one by Twin Rivers, that's by me, right? That would be
there-
waterfront. That would, I'm not sure that would meet what the
Well,
warrant article
whatever, but
language
those were the
supported.
things that we discussed when we talked about it.
Town landing would, though.
Back to the community recreation for a second. You said that was required a match. Can that be town funds that match it?
I'd have to look at the warrant article again, but I know there was some requirement on that.
So it can't be used for like a match if we had that money left over in the bond for recreational fields? This couldn't be,
No.
it can't be matched with town funds?
It has to be non-tax dollars.
And I don't think we need any more recreation fields. Spend enough money in recreation. Please.
I would love some more recreation fields so the adults can use them for not softball. For something other than softball, and, but hey, I know I'll be out there at some point with my kids, so. Any other questions?
Oh, the town clock. We have almost 40, do we still have that money in there, 39,000?
No.
Oh.
I think that was with the money
Yeah.
used. They didn't use all of it, but they used most of it.
Yeah.
It ended up being less expensive than originally
Yeah.
estimated.
All right.
Okay, so
According to one of these things, it's down to 9,600 right now.
9,600.
It's
Alrighty.
listed under downtown redevelopment / clock.
All righty.
I'm putting this in here. Any other? All right, motion to adjourn. I'm not gonna
We're
ask.
too tired to make.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any questions or all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourning at 9:36.